Welcome, welcome to the regular meeting of the Arlington School Committee on today, Thursday, May 11th. I'm Kiersey Allison Ampey. I'm the vice chair. Mr. Thielman, our chairman, is not here right now because he and Dr. Bodie are attending a dinner at the Touchdown Club. They'll be joining us later on this evening. So first, I'd like to open by discussing our new and beautiful art. Is there any way we can lift the screen? Is there anything behind it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm talking as loud as I can.
These
The
are
mics,
not mics, they don't project.
they do project.
Oh, they do?
They do, but the balance sometimes is off, and I'm doing the best I can. So the kindergarten art is over here. It's number paintings inspired by the artist Jasper Johns. Kindergarten students practice layering in their drawing by overlapping different numbers with oil pastels. Kindergartners played with how different size numbers can affect their compositions. They then use watercolors to add color to their art. First grade is next to it. It's watercolor sunflowers. First grade students created sunflower art after looking at the art of Vincent van Gogh and Faith Ringgold. Both famous artists were inspired by sunflowers and made paintings of them. The students used summer and petal templates to trace sunflower shape. They then outlined their pencil marks with crayons and added other colorful designs as well. They talked about different types of lines, repetition, and how they could be incorporated into their drawing to make an interesting design. And then used crayons to create a wax resist and colored over the lines with watercolors. Second grade is in the back. Mixed media weavings. This project was inspired by the minimalist artist Frank Stella. A minimalist work of art tends to focus on shapes, color, and composition. Second grade students used tinfoil and styrofoam to make their own minimalist work of art. They then glued that piece onto a paper plate to act as a loom. Once the piece of art was dry, students were able to weave around their design. Third grade is here in the corner. Emotion trees. For this assignment, third graders considered how artists can express emotion in their work through shape, color, and line. They looked at many works of art by famous artists such as Pablo Picasso, Mark Rothko, and Gustav Klimt. Then we discussed what emotion we thought each artist was trying to communicate through their art. Keeping Gustav Klimt's painting, The Tree of Life, in mind, which some people say represents unity, third grade students then created their own tree that represented an emotion of their own choice. Fourth grade, there's two for fourth grade. The first one I'm going to read about is the positive and negative space designs, which is over here. For this project, fourth grade students learned how to identify positive and negative space in a work of art. Positive space is the areas in a work of art that are the subjects or area of interest, and negative space is the area around the subjects or area of interest. First, fourth grade students created an abstract watercolor painting to add color to their background. Then students chose a shape to cut out and flip that represented the positive and negative parts of their design. Their other fourth grade one is over on that side, I think. Doesn't really look like it. Observational hand drawings. It's to the right, I think. Fourth grade students posed their hands and drew them as best they could from observation. They then had the option to use sign language alphabet to spell out a word in their drawing. They talked about making the hands look more realistic by shading and adding value. Next, students used color construction paper to make a creative and eye-catching design in the background. The final, or actually maybe that was fifth grade. Sorry, I'm reading down. I'm not sure where the other fourth grade the hand one is. Oh, it's over there. Okay, sorry, I can't see that far. Fifth grade. So I think the one I was just talking about is actually the shape designs on the right side of that bulletin board. This is fifth grade. They learned about the amazingly complex tessellation art of M.C. Escher before beginning this project. A tessellation is an arrangement of shapes that fit closely together. They are without gaps or overlapping. To begin, fifth graders cut up a square of construction paper into different shapes. They then reassembled those shapes into a puzzle back together and then glued them onto another piece of paper. Then they looked at their shapes and thought creatively about how they could turn those shapes into different creatures and objects. In the end, the students had a unique and at times silly work of art. And the final one are artist history self-portraits. This self-portrait project was inspired by the artwork of contemporary artist Kaheen Wiley, or Wiley, I'm not sure. She's an artist who lives in Brooklyn, New York, and uses, he's an artist who lives in Brooklyn, New York, and uses models from his neighborhood to recreate famous portraits found throughout history. In doing so, he takes an everyday person and paints them in a heroic manner. To this project, they looked at the artwork of Mr. Willay and compared his paintings to the original works of art his portraits are based on. Then showed the students a handful of famous portraits. They chose one to base their self-portrait on. Students then painted a background that they felt represented themselves in some way. That's it. Beautiful art. And moving on, we're going to have public participation. Miriam Stein?
Well, my name's Miriam Stein. I've lived in Arlington since 1974. Both my children went through the Arlington Public Schools. I'm a longtime member of the Superintendent's Diversity Advisory Committee. First of all, I want to thank the school committee and the superintendent for taking the perspectives of our group into account in initiating cultural competency training for administrators this year. At the same time, we've been disappointed that the current year's district goal, 2.2, of which you have a copy there, which calls for using this year to plan for cultural competency training for teachers, has not been addressed. We're here because we want to share our perspectives about the need for a district goal that highlights and clearly spells out the Arlington Public Schools' commitment to cultural competency training and learning for both teachers and other staff. We regret that we were not given a slot on the agenda where our concerns and viewpoints could be discussed. We look forward to sharing our thoughts at the Curriculum Instruction Assessment and Accountability Subgroup, and hopefully afterwards with the entire school committee. Thank you.
Barbara Bolt?
Good evening. My name is Barbara Boltz. I've been in Arlington for close to 25 years now, and two of my grandsons have gone all the way through the Arlington public school system and then on to college. I also have been a longtime member of the Superintendent's Diversity Advisory Committee. In addition to that, I'm also on the Town Manager's Equal Opportunity Advisory Committee, and I am a town meeting member, which we just finished in 5 nights, and I can't believe it. You all may recall that this group came before this committee last year to request that cultural proficiency training be made a district goal. The committee heard us, and we subsequently worked with the curriculum subcommittee to write the following goal. It's goal 2.2. Provide administrators with cultural proficiency professional development during the 2016-2017 school year, and plan for similar professional development for teachers during the 2017-2018 school year. For those of you who are watching at home, if you'd like to see these goals, you can go to the town's website, which is arlingtonma.gov. Go to departments, then to schools, and there you'll see a link to these 2016-2017 goals. The goal which I just read was then ratified and adopted by the committee and the district. We are pleased that the first part of this goal has been carried out. District administrators have had cultural proficiency training throughout the school year and will continue with 3 sessions planned for the summer. We are here tonight because, to the best of our knowledge at this time, there are no plans in place for cultural proficiency training for all teachers, as stated in the goal. So what we are asking All that we are asking is that the school committee and the district keep its promise. Make a plan for all teachers to have cultural proficiency training during the upcoming school year, and then execute that plan. We look forward to working with you toward making that a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Regina Keynes?
Barbara, could you provide a copy to the secretary of your remarks? You read from us? Yeah.
Good evening.
Can you pull the mic? Yeah, just up, yeah, great,
Is
thanks.
that better? My name is Regina Keynes. I'm a resident of Arlington and also a member of the Superintendent's Diversity Advisory Committee. I'm here tonight as a member of that committee to express one significant factor that, through my experience, I have found to be almost absolutely essential, if not through my experience, but also through research, that goals and or intentions don't ever reach fruition if the leadership doesn't make it clear, have it clearly stated and clearly identified as important and necessary in the process of conducting business. So although I'm pleased to see that in the written document that Dr. Bodie sent out, she does have as the 5th bullet under Goal 2 and under Evidence of Success, a statement that says report on cultural proficiency, professional learning for teachers and administrators. Unfortunately, in my mind, that does not clearly spell out what I believe would be a well-defined goal that teachers and administrators would understand to be an important aspect of Dr. Bodie's focus for next year. We, as members of the committee, feel very strongly that having ratified that goal last year, clearly stated in the goal statement in 2016 that it is imperative that, and hopefully that the school committee will honor that commitment through the superintendent again this year. My experience in the world that I've lived in and the world I currently live in is that in the education of young people, children, especially the children of Arlington, without a clear understanding through their teachers of what we mean by cultural competency and proficiency, they can't be successful. I don't care how smart they are. They're going to be in a world in which the population is going to be very different in many cases than the population they experience here in Arlington. And I think it is important and a necessary aspect of education for our school system, through our superintendent, to clearly outline and underline for her administrators the importance of this. Left to their own devices, as talented, caring educators, and with so many various requirements in the process of their educational program, that this could get lost. And understanding that there are many initiatives and many requirements of the school system, one has to select what is going to rise to the top. And we certainly hope that this area of cultural competency will rise to the top, and through the superintendent that it will be clearly defined, and through the school committee supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Lennon?
She's not there yet.
Not there, okay. Pearl Morrison?
Good evening. I'm the old girl here. Hopefully I can stay within your 3-minute limit, but I'm not known to do too well with that. So just someone say something. Fortunately, I've had the opportunity to work with several superintendents. I think I may have started with Walter Devine. And I'm probably the more senior member of the Superintendent's Diversity Advisory Committee. But I want to tell you, I'm not speaking to you the school committee. I just thank you for what you have done as far as receiving our cultural competency proposal. But I'd like to speak to the new parents, and there are several of them, I know in my neighborhood there are, who really don't quite understand what the Superintendent's Diversity Advisory Committee, who we are, what we're doing, and they probably don't understand what is this cultural competency all about. So I want to tell you, parents, that as a committee, anything that we propose to the school committee, our group, the superintendent's group, we're the ones that do the research. We worked over one full year to produce this cultural competency to influence behavior, language, and atmosphere in the Arlington Public Schools. Proposal for a district goal for 2016-2017. It was enacted 1 full year, and people that I give this to are very impressed by the research that we did in order to present it to the committee. Anything that we ask the superintendent or the school committee to do, we do the research. We don't want to be a burden to you. If parents that are there on TV land and scenic monotony, if you're interested in looking at this, please send an email to Miriam, miriam.stein@comcast.net. She will see to it that you get it. I take this responsibility of working with the superintendent very seriously. I have the greatest respect for the school committee. I'm a retired principal. I understand all that has to be done with your budget and given it the year. However, I don't want our cultural competency, the training for teachers, I don't want it to get lost. I understand the importance of the social emotional. I get it. But that's still not the same as educating our faculty now. The administrators have taken the training. But it's very important for you to continue with what you laid out in the 2016-2017 school goals. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to come before you. And thank you for starting the work, but please continue the work of cultural competency training for the teachers.
Thank you all for sharing your thoughts with us, and we'll make sure that the superintendent and the chair have heard what you're thinking about, and we'll be addressing it in another meeting, I think. Thank you. Okay. So that ends public participation. Next up is Matt Coleman, Dan Sheldon, and Terry Dash. I just have a T here.
Do I have to sit, or is it okay if I use my teacher voice to stand?
You need to
use
near the microphone.
You can pick up the microphone.
The mic if you
Yes,
want.
walk around with the mic. You can walk around
I'll
with the mic.
try to contain myself.
The mic is so people in TV land can hear you.
While they're setting up over there, I have a few projects that students have done over the last few years. This one is a 3D printed drum kit that the 3D printing was done in the CAD class. The music sound effects were done in the music technology class. And the wiring it up and programming were done in the computer science classes. And if it's still working, maybe I'll put it over there. You can hear you can play the drum. So we got this.
That's cool.
Some of the lower sounds don't come over very well with the
Nice.
speakers. The students actually thought it was broken at first. And the sound effects that music tech has, they have great sound over there, nice headphones. And we just have little cheesy speakers on a laptop. So they thought it wasn't working. It was actually just sounds outside of the vocal range, or the vocal range of a computer, if you will. And I also have a binary adding machine that was done down in the wood shop after it kind of opened back up. And I had a student who was very interested in doing, she helped with the building the sets and everything like that. And she wanted to do something finer and bring together her computer science and her shop love. And she made a binary adding machine. which I can show off later if you want me to. But it's up and running, so let's get to the slides. So, oh, is this me? What do I press? Forward? You sure? You're good? Okay. So I'm going to talk about high school, and Terry's going to talk about the junior high school. Good news. Enrollment at the high school in computer science, for me this is good news, is up. 4 years ago, I came in to help kickstart the computer science department. We had 0 students for a few years there in between. I'm not sure exactly how many. And we've been growing the program every year since then. It's been great. We now offer 4 different classes. We have 2 units of one class, so we have 5 different, it's a full-time position right now, which is great. And we have a level A course called Exploring Computer Science, which is a national course. You may have heard about it before. We've got to have an in-house honors computer science, which is where a lot of the extra time to make some cool stuff like these projects here is done. And then we have 2 different AP courses this year. Kind of the traditional AP Computer Science A course, which we've had at the high school for a very, very long time. And the College Board just released kind of a new course this year. So we kind of piloted it last year. There was no AP test last year, and this year there is an AP Computer Science Principles test, and we had 38 students take that on Friday. So it's actually our biggest class, and has been a very good class. So we're doing well there. Not only is enrollment up, enrollment for Arlington High is actually way up. So I too have been here since 1974, and I taught here again in 2000 to 2002. And we always had about 3 classes of computer science. From when my older brothers went here, when I went here, when I taught here. We're up to 5 now. We had about 60 students-ish, and the 3 classes that I taught back in 2000 weren't full classes. They were good size, but they're not as big as, we have 28 students signing up for some of our classes now. They're getting very big. So I love this, that we have, what used to be 50, 60 students, and now we're up over 100, and hopefully still growing. We'll see what the final numbers are for next year, but they're looking pretty good, at least kind of on par with this year. Let's talk about kind of enrollment. One of the things that I think about a lot, and a lot of people ask me questions about, are where are the women in computer science? And nationally, there aren't that many women going to computer science. If you look at AP tests, this is from 2011, half male, half female for AP stats. More women than men in AP biology, but again, half or roughly half in calc. And for computer science, it's 19% for women. In 2013, it went to roughly stayed at 19%. So it's not really moving. It's slightly higher than that now, but not a lot. Hopefully this next year's numbers will be better. And one of the things they're doing to address that is this new computer science course that we're taking. Our numbers are slightly better than these numbers. We're about 23%, but it's not high. But the course where it's highest, and we're up at like 35%, is the new computer science principles course. It was designed to be a little more all-inclusive and not the traditional computer science course that you may think of. It deals with a lot of not just programming, but all sorts of computer science aspects and how computer science and society are interacting these days. It's a much nicer introductory course than I had in college. And a number of colleges are actually adopting a similar course. So hopefully that number will continue to change, and we'll get more and more women in our computer science classes, something we're actively tracking. Nationally, there's an unbalanced educational supply and demand for computer science. And I'm kind of going the next 2 slides really talk to what I see as kind of the need for computer science in our education, and I'm glad we have some. Like 9 in 10 parents want their kids to study it, but only 1 in 4 schools currently teach it. Again, that number might be slightly off, but it's not off by much these days. It might be up to 30%. Right now, computing makes 2/3 of the projected jobs in STEM. So that's not just computer science programmers, but computing in general becomes a large part of a job, is huge in almost all STEM fields. And yet we have very few programmers and very few people trained in computer science. Right now, there's some of the highest paying jobs, and only 3% of college students graduate with a degree in computer science, and only 8% of STEM graduates are in computer science. So again, a lot of 2/3 of the jobs are in computing, but 8% of the STEM graduates are going into computer science. So there's, again, this huge misbalance between what people are studying and what's available out there. In 22 states, computer science classes don't count towards a math or science high school requirement. That's including Massachusetts and Arlington, something I personally would love to see potentially movement on. To address the last slide, only 22% of computer scientists are women, and only 13% are Black, or African American, or Hispanic and Latino. So the representation of minorities, both racial and gendered in this case, are not good enough yet. That's kind of the demand and the need for what happens when you give computer science to high school students. Google did this great study. So that people that take AP Computer Science are 8 times more likely to major in computer science. And remember, only 1 in 4 schools offer computer science. And yet, people that took AP Computer Science are 8 times more likely to go into a major in it. One of the better jobs in our current market. Google did a survey looking at their employees exposed to CS prior to college. Nearly all CS majors, 98%, were exposed to CS prior to college. That's staggering when you think about only 1 in 4 schools teaches computer science. Now, this isn't just teaching computer science, but exposure to it. So I am so happy that I'm here, exposing the students here to computer science. It gives them an opportunity to really take this on as a career and take this on as a major. Those who went on to major in CS were more likely than non-majors to have a CS class offered in their high school again. What we're doing here and at the junior high school really matters in giving the students of Arlington an opportunity that it seems there's a barrier somewhere else along the way if we don't give it to them. And I love that that's what we're doing in the computer science department here. You can go to the next one. So what are we doing now? We're kind of growing and we're customizing. So we're doing introduction to computer science at all levels. We have an honors level, an AP level introductory class, and an A-level introductory class next year. We're actually semesterizing that honors level class. So next year we'll have 2 semester-long courses that students can take them both, a Python development course and a web design with JavaScript, so an interactive web. And then the following year I'm actually planning on offering 2 different semester-long classes in game design, which students absolutely love. It gets people in the door, and robotics. So we're actually going to have a nice full 4-year offerings at the high school at the honors level and above, which will be the first time that I've seen that. And I think that lets students who want to try it a little bit or not be able to do that. We're also expanding the pool of teachers that are able to teach computer science. In previous iterations of computer science at the high school, there's only just been 1 teacher, and when they move on, it's hard to keep the whole thing going, and we're trying to disperse it out into other teachers. So we've had 2 different teachers teach computer science this past year, me and Ali Schubert, and next year, myself and Clayton Jones will be teaching computer science, and we actually have another math teacher who's interested in teaching some computer science classes. So I think things are looking good from my perspective, looking at computer science at high school. And I'll turn it over to Terry.
Hello, I'm Terry Dash. I'm one of 2 full-time equivalent teachers. There are actually 3 teachers in the middle school, but only 2 FTE. And I'm going to tell you about the middle school program. Oh, wait, go back. That's my students' quote. My students say, computer science is a way to expand your brain and have fun. All right, now you can switch. I'm going to give you an overview of the 6th grade and 8th grade curriculum, and then I'm going to show you some projects. The 6th grade meets every other day all year, and it's a required class as long as the student's schedule permits. The goal for 6th grade is to get kids excited about computer science, both its topics and its habits of mind, and I'm going to explain those. The topics we cover in 6th grade include programming, and we actually program in a variety of languages. One is Scratch, Lightbox, CAD. These words don't mean much to you, but they're different languages. I'm wearing my code bug, and some of you have a code bug in front of you. Let's see if I can press the right button here to get it started. There you go. My class is named DML. It says DML Rocks. So the students actually made lots of projects on these code bugs. If you press the B button, something will happen on your code bug, I hope. So this was part of a unit on wearable computing that we did this year in 6th grade. Okay, so I'm going to continue to talk while you play. Besides programming, we do how computers and the internet work, so students have some idea of the miracle around them. Web development, so students make websites and learn what's under the hood, and a little on safety and ethics. And the picture there is of CodeBug's programming language. Besides topics, we cover habits of mind. These are ways of approaching problems. Every day I try to teach my students to ask 3 questions. What am I trying to say? In other words, what am I doing with this program? Using what vocabulary and grammar? So every programming language is different. So they become multilingual. So they have to become flexible. And then finally, how can I organize my thinking clearly? So this is the essence of computer science to me. When you sit down at a computer and you program, every line, the computer is giving you feedback about whether you're thinking clearly. Every line, gently, but very firmly. And I really believe at the end of a year of computer science, the kids can think more clearly, and that can carry over into other subjects too. That to me is the great gift of computer science and what I love most about the subject. So. More formally, I would tell you, I'll just go quickly. We teach them algorithms, that is recipes for solving problems, decomposition, that is how to solve a big problem by breaking it down into parts, how to think sequentially, organize your thinking, and pattern recognition. Okay, the 8th grade curriculum, this is a new class for next year. We're really excited about trying this. This will be every other day, so only half as long, every other day for 1 semester, so only half as long, and it's elective rather than mandatory. And I'm going to tell you the curriculum, but it might change. It's being developed now. 8th grade will engage kids more rigorously, a little more formal CS, computer science concepts. The little device there is called a circuit playground, and it's another wearable device. It's got a ring of lights, but it also has sensors on it, so you can do distance sensing and temperature sensing and all sorts of stuff. Okay. They'll do programming in JavaScript, a more grown-up language than we do in 6th grade. They'll create real apps, and they'll program Circuit Playground. The language that you see in the corner there is JavaScript in its block-based version, and we'll also do some safety and ethics. The habits of mind at this level is all the previous ones, plus abstraction. That means looking at a problem and knowing which details to pay attention to and which ones are just distracting. And evaluating solutions, that is, how well did my program actually solve the problem I set out to do? And in the corner there, thank you, Matt, is the JavaScript in its grown-up form, and the kids will get a chance to do that also. All right. This is the showcase. So you can skip the websites just for time. They were wonderful, but the programming, I think, is more captivating. Okay. This is a 6th grade project. I'm going to narrate as it goes. The student named Allie designed the game. In the game, there's a bar at the bottom that you move with the arrow keys, and you have to dodge the pink ones and get the blue ones. You'll notice that they light up as you get there. So she designed the gameplay, and then she did all the coding as well. And in 1 minute, the movie will flip over so you can see the coding. There are 5 characters there at the bottom. Right now, we're going to flip over. There you go. So I'm going to flip through the different characters. There's quite a lot of coding that went on. This was immense effort for a 6th grader, just truly impressive. It was really wonderful to see. Okay, you can flip forward. Okay, oops, back to Declan. You can't hear this, I don't think, but it's a music watch. This is Codebug. He's wearing it on his arm, and he's touching there are metal circles around the outside. As he touches each one, it plays a different note. So in his mind, this was a music watch. Okay, you can flip forward. This is a clock. So as it goes on, I'll tell you, it's actually counting seconds. It's starting at 12, that's 19, 12:20, 12:21, 12:22, 12:23, 12:24. If you get me sometime, I can explain to you how the numbers are encoded. It was a really wonderful project that she worked very hard on. Okay, and finally, this is a coin toss. So the first time you press a button on the Codebug, I'm going to press the button. It tosses tails. But then I love watching this because it tells you how students think. Then it says, go away. And it launches out to say many other irreverent things as well. Okay. You can go on.
This is middle school.
This is middle school. Yeah, this is middle school. Right. This was an artbotics project. So there's this is a mask. And as you approach it, as you walk toward it, it activates the mask to move its jaw down, up and down. So if you go to the next movie, actually, just a little bit, you can see what's behind the mask. So this is the other side of the mask. Here we go. We're going to turn it around. and there's a student narrating this, but I'll tell you. There's the circuit board, and it's connected to two eyes that go on, and also the jaw that drops down. And you can imagine the number of moving parts he's got to get the jaw to go up and down. He's got 2 rotary motors. That's all he had to work with, so he had to turn that into an up and down motion. It was really another wonderful project. So this year I asked my kids how many of them would vote to have a computer science course in 7th and 8th grade, and it was an anonymous survey, but 80% of them voted to take it on into other years. That's it, I think.
Before you go up, first of all, I want to thank Terry and Dan for coming, but I also wanted to tell you that their programs have been recognized by the Journal of Tech and Learning magazine, and tomorrow I'm going to be going over as part of a panel that's talking about trying to get computer science to count as math or science credit at the high school level, and I'm going to be sharing a lot of the information from their courses. So, and the other thing I want to take the opportunity to do is to thank the Arlington Educational Foundation, because the upgrade to both labs was covered in part by the Arlington Educational Foundation.
As were the code bugs.
Yeah.
May we have time for 5 minutes of questions? Mr. Hayner?
Well, not necessarily a question, I just want to share with you, my wife was a Arlington High graduate in 1965, went into Northeastern. They were offering this new possible lifestyle. It was called computer programming.
Yeah.
And she had been an AP math major here, and she was only one woman in the class, and the rest of the class was made up of music majors, which was interesting, and it came out of the logic thinking of it. And thanks to her, I was able to maintain my liberal views going forward in education. She always made the money for the program. So thank you, and to your predecessors and everything else. This is an exciting area. The kids, they get the immediate success. They work diligently on the programming part of it. You see it, and they focus on it. And the end result is they've created something.
Yes.
And it's really powerful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering if New York Times just published an article on programming for everyone. Did you see that? I just sent it to Matt. And one of the points they make there is that there are going to be lots and lots of jobs that are not programming jobs that will require people to have little bits of programming knowledge. And that's why we all need to sort of learn a little bit of programming, even if we're not a computer science professional. But my question is, if there were to be a lot more students who are interested in taking your courses, would we have the capacity to expand, or would we have to turn people away?
I mean, so this probably has multiple parts to it.
Yeah, Matt.
The computer lab that we have at the high school is unoccupied 2 periods a day.
Mm-hmm.
So we could scale up another 50 students without running into like physical problems.
Right.
There's paying for another 2 periods of a teacher, which that's a different issue, but I'm available for some of that. I don't know if you want to.
When I think about this, I think about it as, do we have the curriculum and the content, do we have the staffing, and do we have the space? I think when it does split to Gibbs and OMS, there will be much more space in OMS. We can build a program a little bit more there, but then we just need the staffing and the time to actually build a curriculum. That I would say is the hurdles at this point. I would like to expand.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Card.
Just related to that, I was wondering if, I know the deadline to sign up for the middle school classes tomorrow. How's that going so far? Do you know?
Great. Dr. Woods sent out the email at 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and she had said within 5 minutes she already had 5 emails, pretty much requests. By yesterday morning, we already had 100 students who expressed interest, and that's pretty quick. I think this morning maybe 3 or 4 more may have applied, but in reality, some of the students that aren't, expressing interest most likely already know they have blocks in their schedule. They can't necessarily do it. So this is 100 students with very minimal advertising, just sending it out in a real quick turnaround that have expressed interest. So, it's great to see that. It's great to see that these students actually want these kinds of courses.
Mr. Schlickman?
When you were talking in the beginning about exposure to CS as being the defining fact moving on, are you defining I think of exposure as being like exposed to measles or something, but you know. Are you defining exposure as the middle school classes that you're starting off with? Is that your definition, or is there some other definition of exposure that you're referring to as a basic prerequisite?
So, you mean during the Google study that I looked?
Yeah.
So they define exposure to mean a whole bunch of things, that it was either a formal class or a summer course or other things along that line. In terms of doing their statistics for how many people went on to major, it really was people that were exposed to it beforehand. So there are other ways to meet those statistics besides a core class.
So, but by definition then, a student who goes through our middle school will hit that exposure if they've been here in 6th grade and possibly at 8th.
Yeah, with the new program that Terry's put in place, I think that's true. I don't know if Google looked back to the junior high school years in that study or not, or if it was just the high school years. I couldn't say off the top of my head.
It was sort of interesting because I wanted to see what they were defining exposure as, to see if we were actually fulfilling that, or there was something more we should be doing to reach that exposure level, because, you know, looking at technology coming forward, this is going to be an essential skill.
Yeah, and I'd like to see minorities really represented more in our class, at least at the level that they are represented within our school system, and it's not quite there yet.
Part of the reason why I've really appreciated and liked the work that Terry, John Bradley, Matt Larrabee do in 6th grade, we have such a rare niche opportunity where we pretty much have a mandatory course for all 6th grade students. Like, that's unheard of. And to be able to give students that kind of exposure, that almost mandatory exposure, so we can catch them and show them that they can do this, it's awesome that we already have that. Great.
Ms. Stark?
I also agree that a lot of it is exposure. As someone who was a CS major long, long ago, I was one of 2 women in my university, and we hung together quite strongly. But one of the reasons that I volunteer for Girls Who Code, we have a very active Girls Who Code here at the Arlington Library, and it's a bunch of your 6th grade girls who are there, and it's great. And, you know, it's really exciting to see how excited they are, and just to have a place to hang out and do that kind of stuff. And it's really exciting that it's, you know, kind of taken on at the middle school and the high school as well, because I know that a lot of kids are really are interested in it.
It's great.
Yeah, one of my classes, 10 women and 7. Which is the first time I've ever taught a computer science class with more women than men. And that was a great class.
I want to say thank you for coming, and also I have a 6th grader, so I've been experiencing these things as they come along, and she's just so enthused. And her older sister went through the first version of this class, and I'm just so impressed at how much it's changed. And it's an amazing class now. It's her favorite, if not one of, I mean, it's either one of her favorite or her favorite, depending on the day. It's just great. She stays after school to do some more on the projects and stuff. So thank you very much.
Can I collect the code bugs? You can't keep those.
I'm addicted to the one that plays a game.
Make sure that's in his evaluation.
That he took them back?
He took them back.
Actually, that would be a good part of his evaluation, yes.
Saves money.
Okay. So moving on, Dave Ardito on visual arts.
Hi, everybody. First of all, let me thank you for every time this exhibit in the school committee room rotates for reading the teachers' statements about the artwork. It means a lot to the teachers, it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the students. And to devote the time to that is remarkable. So thank you for doing that every time. Also, thanks for giving me the time to summarize what has been going on in the art department over the last several years. I haven't seen you in quite a while, so I have some catching up to do. I've divided my remarks into 3 categories: Not Your Grandmother's Art Education, aka curriculum highlights; community connections, including public art projects; And the future, what are we planning in the very near future to make even more improvements? So, what do art teachers really teach? I think if you go back to your own art education, I think you'd find it very different from what they're doing today, not only in terms of what they're making, but what they're trying to instill in children. The K-12 art program has changed significantly in recent years here in Arlington. The primarily recreational and superficial approach to teaching art has given way to an academic and holistic approach that defines visual art as a core curriculum or a core discipline. We believe we are empowering students to practice and apply these essential thinking skills and habits of mind. It was interesting that CS also teaches to habits of mind. You'll see in a second that ours are in some cases similar, in some cases very different. We teach to the state and national arts curriculum standards, but we think we go way beyond them. We use them as points of departure. We have restructured the K-12 art curriculum around these 8 studio habits, and every project, every assignment, and every critique reinforces these habits for every student in all grades. We believe that these habits of mind have enormous educational value to all students, not just the gifted and talented. If all students practice these 8 habits every year for 13 years, these strategies really do become habits of mind that last them a lifetime. Because of the time factor, I'll describe just 3 or 4 of them to give you an idea of what they mean and what kind of benefits they deliver. Students are learning to engage and persist in their work. That is, to develop focus and other mental states conducive to working hard and persevering at all tasks. When engaging and persisting, students don't let failure discourage them. We don't penalize failure. We teach students to accept it, to push through it, and even expect failure as an essential part of the creative process. Stretching and exploring is to reach beyond their own capacities, to explore playfully without a preconceived plan, and to embrace and even celebrate the opportunity to learn from mistakes and accidents. Envisioning is one of my favorites. It's learning to step back from your work and to picture mentally what cannot be directly observed. It sounds like a scientist might be thinking that way. And to imagine possible next steps in making art or doing anything for that matter. We believe that every student can envision and thereby discover their own best artistic solutions. Reflect. That is to question, explain, and evaluate, to think, talk, and write with others about an aspect of one's work or working process. Students take part in numerous critiques, assessments, and exhibits, like the one you see here, where they are asked to apply standards and form personal opinions about their work and the work of others. So these other habits, these are the other 4, and I won't explain those in detail, but I hope you'll have a chance to read the descriptors of them. They're just as essential as the other 4. Their understanding art world has to do with them becoming familiar with especially contemporary art and express is sort of self-evident. So, how else have we been changing things? We are shifting away from teaching about just dead white male artists to teaching about contemporary female and male artists from every world culture. This includes teaching students that so many things in their own lives, their ancestry, things that are happening right now, socially and politically, locally and globally, and artistically, can motivate and inform their art making. Students learn that their personal feelings, their own fears, their dreams, and their beliefs can be and should be the subject matter of their art. This is so much beyond the mistaken concept that art serves only to develop, to decorate walls and refrigerators and to make us feel good on a very superficial level. Speaking of technology, we are expanding the use of technology at every grade level. We are introducing tools and media that broaden the high school art curricula to include digital photography, video and animation, and we are using iPads for research and art making at the elementary and middle school levels. We are part of the initial efforts to introduce STEAM. We put the A in back in STEM at every level. This coincides with our belief in integrated learning that helps students understand the interconnectedness of all disciplines. With the help of the Education Foundation, we are building toward a full digital media lab at the high school. This doesn't show up too well in this kind of light, but this is a beautiful digital photograph done by a high school junior, where she's manipulated this in Photoshop, that diving friend of hers. Other recent changes. There's a significant change in the way we teach and approach observational drawing. We've been reevaluating the role drawing has in the curriculum. You know, I think the average person really values realistic work, realistic paintings, realistic drawing. But we don't devalue that, but we value things in addition to that. We are defining drawing in much more individualistic terms, seeing it as yet another way for students to interpret what they observe in the world around them. We see their observational drawings as personal responses rather than rote recordings that must look all the same. I had the staff do a common reading, a book by Nancy Smith called Observational Drawing with Children, and it changed everybody's attitude toward drawing realistically. That forcing realistic drawing on children is a sure way of discouraging so many children. I believe in the art teacher as artist model in art education. Making art and teaching art are symbiotic. So I've been encouraging all K through 12 art teachers to make their own art at every chance they get. And they don't have a lot of time during the week. But they can go at it during the weekend, they can go at it during vacations, and they can certainly make their own art during the summer, and I really promote that with them. When a teaching vacancy occurs in Arlington, I ask that candidates show evidence of their own recent artwork and that they have a solid grasp of contemporary art forms. We have a significant number of art teachers who are not only creating their own art, but are also exhibiting it on a regular basis, including yours truly. Mm-hmm. At the elementary level, art teachers are talking about ways to implement more student-centered, choice-based art classes as a way to reinforce authentic artistic behaviors in children. Part of this strategy is to set up a variety of media stations in the art room at the same time so that students can choose their materials and projects that target their creative interests on that given day. Participation in the recent National Art Education Convention by 5 of our art teachers, thanks to the assistant superintendent, added inspiration to try these innovative strategies. I'm proud of Arlington art teachers who are starting to present regularly at both the state and national conventions. As you know, we have improved the schedule for elementary art teachers, and this has dramatically improved our art programs in every elementary school, and I thank you for your role in that. We are developing common assessments at all 3 levels and coordinating the curriculum in every grade and in every commonly taught high school art course. We have, for the first time in a long, long time, art clubs at every level, elementary, middle school, and high school. So, on to our community connections. That was a long time ago, but that was our first real attempt at a public art project in Arlington. The Public Art Committee initiated that. I worked closely with them, and that still is up at Spy Pond at the Boys and Girls Club, and those 4 individual panels were designed by high school students. I think it is essential for school arts programs to develop meaningful relationships with the community, and we have done just that over the past 8 years. We want students to have the opportunity to not only benefit from community resources, but to also give back to the town that has nurtured them most of their lives. The Inside Out project is just a stellar example of a school getting involved in the community. This was in response to the hateful graffiti that had been perpetrated against Addison and against the community. And the 3 art teachers at the middle school committed themselves to making this happen, as did the Education Foundation and the local cultural council. Those are still up, but they're rapidly falling off, and hopefully they'll come all the way off at some point, so we don't have to sandblast the school. But that effort was astounding on so many levels. Almost every department in town got involved in it in one way or another. And I think another stellar example is the Youth Banner Project. And if you walk down Mass Ave right now, you'll see 20 banners designed by Arlington High School students and I believe one Audison student. And this project honors, and it's an ongoing project that'll happen every year. It honors the short life of Arlington student Gracie James while responding to important themes such as this year's theme, Compassionate Community. 20 beautiful large banners are hung now along Mass Ave. We are strongly connected to so many groups in town. To the Arlington Center for the Arts. Students intern there. They take art courses. We hold student and staff exhibits there, including images of Arlington, like you see here, for all fifth graders, and Teen Visions and Voices for secondary students. The ACA awards a merit scholarship to a graduating high school student each year, and the art teachers teach classes there. One of the art teachers is even on the ACA board. We have forged a strong relationship with the Arlington International Film Festival, collaborating on a visiting artist program, if you remember the Winfred Rembert visit of several years past, film presentations, young filmmakers competitions, and the festival's poster contest. This award-winning student poster went on to become the festival's logo for who knows how long. We are connected to ACMI in similar ways. Right now at the Town Hall, there's a K-12 art show. That's an annual event every year, one of my favorites. And we would love for you to attend the reception for students and their art teachers on May 25th. I'll send you more information about that from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. This is open to the public for just about a month during late April and May, mostly every year. We also use the Robbins and Fox libraries to display student artwork. We have an ongoing relationship with Mass College of Art and Design, hosting their student teachers, sending our graduating seniors to study there, and filling Arlington teaching vacancies with the best prepared candidates in the region. We also send students in grades 3 through 12 to study art in Mass Arts Saturday Studios program, which I actually supervised for many years. Most recently, we are working with the Human Rights Commission to conduct a high school logo contest for its new Arlington for All initiative. And 17 high school students were part of a major cultural planning focus group organized by the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. The Arlington Foundation and the Education Foundation and the Arlington Cultural Council have been so supportive of numerous art department initiatives, resulting in visiting artists, special projects, professional development, new curriculum, courses in digital media, and so much more. Our local PTOs have also been very supportive of our teachers in each school. FoodLink supports our exhibit receptions. We keep the community informed about the K-12 visual art events and accomplishments through Kathy's monthly newsletters, the Town Meeting Book, a public K-12 visual art Google Plus community. I have to figure out how to invite you to that, and school art program websites and blogs. A list of related links are available to you. I'll make those available to you along with these notes later tonight. We participate in numerous contests and competitions, group shows, including the Scholastic Art Awards, Art All-State, Photography Contest, the Lexington Society of Arts and Crafts, a high school regional exhibit. So I'll show you quickly, because of the time, some of the amazing projects that have happened over the last 2 years in all of our schools. The Art, Food, and Community Project at Thompson, where hundreds of fourth graders made bowls that they eventually gave to the Arlington Eats group, and that were sold to raise money for the needy in Arlington. We even had students painting the sculptural gargoyles at the firehouse in Arlington Center. And right outside the high school is this transformer box, and students have been applying and creating designs for doing more transformer boxes all around town. This is one of my favorite projects of all. It's called the Big Little Project. And what happens is a kindergartner or first grader creates a two-dimensional drawing of a monster or a creature, and an eighth grader gets to choose from those drawings and create a three-dimensional interpretation of it. Then they get together at an exhibit over at Ottoson, the kindergartner or first grader and the eighth grader, and they talk about it. In the meantime, the eighth grader has written the kindergartner a note explaining why they loved their piece and why they did a three-dimensional sculpture of it. It's fantastic. I just want to take the time to explain this project. So this is also at Ottoson. It's called the Remix Project. But the most important thing is to read the artist's, I think it was 6th grade, comment as she did this. So she's reinterpreting the painting on the right, which happens to be an old Dutch master, Vermeer. You're probably familiar with it because a book was written about it, and there was a movie made of it called A Girl with a Pearl Earring. But here's what the student wrote about it. I chose this painting because I liked how she looked like she was perfect. And I thought how I could manipulate it. I remixed it by making it look like she was getting plastic surgery. I chose to do that because of all the pressure society puts on girls and how they should be perfect. It gives you an idea of the comments I made earlier about the curriculum, that so many things now can motivate student art. Even this girl's consciousness of social pressures. And then she goes on to say I had trouble blending out the light and dark colors. So she was thinking about other artistic things as well. We had a tremendous support of the Japanese visit through the art teacher at Dowling just very recently. This young girl, 4th or 5th grader, created 1,000 cranes, origami cranes in honor of the Japanese visit. And this student just recently won the poster contest, Make Way for Children, the Department of Transportation poster contest. And he says, be sure to look both ways for their massive wheeled machines humans call cars. We have a showcase it changes every month along with this exhibit. If you click on that visual arts showcase, you'll see a slideshow of student art in addition to this. And there's our Google Art community. So quickly, the art staff and I have been involved in planning for the high school rebuild and Gibbs renovation, just to let you know we're on top of that. We are constantly reevaluating our courses at the high school, especially. We have expanded our one-semester course offerings. We have created exciting new courses such as painting, ceramics, and mixed media, sculpture, and we are working toward having a full digital media lab within the art department. We are rethinking and probably revamping our basic art courses called Art 1 and Art 2. More on that later. We would love to get parents even more involved in their children's art education. I want to reinvigorate the Friends of Art that we started a few years back but needs a bit of a kick. And this group can advocate for the continuation of a strong and vital K-12 art program. And lastly, I am very grateful to be working with some of the finest art educators in the profession. Working as a team, they are giving an extraordinary art education to thousands of Arlington students. So thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bodie and I were at an event for the athletic department, so we're just getting here. Thank you for the presentation. We came in the middle of it. Do school committee members have questions? Mr. Schlickman?
Yeah, thank you. A couple things that you stated that I'd like to follow up on. First of all, you were talking about observational drawing. I'm assuming that's when you have the artist look at something and interpret it somehow. So I'm just sort of trying to put my frame on the definition so that in reflection, what I'm hearing you saying is that in terms of observational drawing, you're not requiring them to be a camera and photograph it on paper, but to somehow interpret the experience of looking at this. Was that sort of?
That's really, really close, yeah. That's pretty much it. And you're right, it is observational drawing requires that you're actually looking at something, whether it's a model, a pose. Students pose for each other all the time, still life, material, landscape. Students are taken outside to do that even. But yeah, the expectations are different in that, I mean, this book I mentioned by Nancy Smith goes into the idea that students respond to different aspects of a given object. So one student might be really taken by the texture of an object. So they would emphasize that in their drawing of it. Another student might be interested in the actual shape of the object. So if you get what I mean, it's like an individualistic response to that object, not a predictable, predetermined response to it, like it has been true for so long.
Yeah, I'm sort of looking at that water bottle there, and the way the light is bending on the top of it is kind of cool. But
exactly.
Yeah. Secondly, you made a statement and you went past it, and it's like burying your lead in journalism. You talked about how thank you very much because the changes in the schedule allowed us to do many more wonderful things in elementary education, and then went past it, but that's sort of an important thing, I think. So if you could elaborate just how that made things better for art.
Well, it added 5 minutes to each period, so you're going to get more focus when students can sit and work on one thing for a longer period of time. You get even a disproportionate increase in involvement and commitment to a piece of art. I mean, you gain a lot more than the 5 minutes in a way. It's done a bunch of things, especially in terms of reducing teacher stress, because you have fewer changes, fewer preparations, fewer cleanups. We've even built in some transition time between classes, so it's helped in that regard, just having teachers be able to breathe. And but it's left more room in that single period for a student for assessment. So students, that 5 minutes, instead of being used for a rushed cleanup, the cleanup can come at the very end of the class, but before that we now have time for increased show and tell, increased gallery walks, increased discussions about student work. So that's a big gain. It also gives teachers a little bit more time for presentations, and so you're not taking as much time away from hands-on work.
Yeah, I just also want to say that I admire your thoughts about hiring art teachers who are artists and asking them to show. I know that when I've hired, I've looked for those similar kind of things, and one of the things I remember from my junior high art teacher is he was always out painting barns someplace, landscapes and old barns, and I still remember that. I mean, it brought his art and his thought and his creativity into the process.
I'm a little careful about it, because you could ask me the question, can there be a good art teacher who also doesn't make art on their own? And I've seen that. And so I'm cautious about this. It's not a slam dunk. It's not 100% true in all cases. But I like it when I see that a teacher has committed themselves to making art, at least creating exemplars for students, and really immersing themselves into that project at home and beyond the classroom. So I have to admit, I love that we have, I would say out of the 12 art teachers that we have, I would say 8 of them are actively making art and exhibiting it.
Mr. Carden, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about how you go about implementing the sort of curriculum type changes, like the choice-based art room and changing the focus of the painters. It's not like, you have like, this is your new science kit and this is, how you change your lesson plan. And I happen to have 2 kids at 2 different elementary schools, and there does seem to be quite, one who seems to have embraced those things and one who seems to have not embraced some of those things. So could you talk a little bit about your implementation of those items?
By that you mean, how would a choice-based art room work?
And how do you get your teachers to do that? Yeah.
Actually, the teachers are, the 6 elementary art teachers are the people who are the most enthusiastic about trying this after they saw good examples of that in progress at the National Art Education Convention recently. It's a lot of work. It means a different approach to management, a lot more prep, and to some degree a lot more cleanup. And it means a shift of responsibility to the student for a lot of that. But the basic idea is, it's also called Teaching Artistic Behavior, TAB, which was invented a few years ago, where, you know, when you're an artist, you don't get directions from somebody else and sit down and follow those directions exactly. You think about what you want to make. It's influenced by your day, your mood, so many different things, your passions, again, your ancestry, everything that's unique about you. And teachers want to acknowledge that and somehow bring that into the art room. It presents challenges because you could have 3 different projects going on at the same time. And I mean, you're not going to have students do anything they want. You're going to structure those 3 areas within the art room. But we're going to give it a try. We think it's better for students. It empowers them. It really does teach them how to be an artist in a more realistic way.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we got to move on to the next presentation. So thanks so much.
Thank
Great
you.
presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Sue, Frankie, you're up next to talk about health and the nursing curriculum.
It's not going to be nearly as creative.
Sure it
I
will
love
be.
TED Talks, and I was watching something on TED Talks about how to give a presentation. So I tried in my kitchen, and I am so monotonous, it's scary.
All right.
No, even the dog got bored. So, but
a very effective director of nursing, I have to say.
What?
But a very effective director of nursing.
Oh, well, thank you. So do you have the report that I sent along with?
Yeah.
Because I think that sort of
It's on
captures
there.
more information than what's on the PowerPoint slides. So it's just to the right, little right click. Okay, great. So anyway, it's actually been a fabulous year. I'm not going to lie. This is the agenda of what I'm looking to present, and you all have copies of the PowerPoint, so I won't spend too much time on this. I'm just going to go through the general statistics. So when I report every month to the Department of Public Health, I have to break down statistics, and it's a 8 or 9 page report that I send in every month, and then I have to do a large report at the end of the year with a accumulation and other questions that I have to fill out. So total, as of last week when I did this report, we had almost 52,000 student encounters. When you look at the line that says management, that refers to when a school nurse has to do field trip management and put together all the necessary documentation and EpiPens and inhalers for the teachers, and make sure that we have nursing coverage for those field trips. And we'll talk about field trips a little bit later. It also includes any kind of meeting that they go to. So if there's an IEP meeting or a 504 meeting with a parent, that gets included into management. What is not captured here is the actual time spent. Our numbers are really good and tight this year compared to previous years. We have, there was sort of a learning curve on how to capture data and put, garbage in, garbage out. If we put information into our electronic medical records, that's not necessarily the best way to put it in. I can't capture that data really well. So we worked really hard this year on trying to do that, and I think it was fairly effective. The other category, which is the largest category, this is how electronic medical records break things down. If I could do it my own way, I would do it differently. So minor illnesses will get included in that. Someone that has pink eye might get included in that, even though it should technically be an illness. But I don't create the software and I can't change it. So, although I'm trying to, but they only listen to me once in a while. And then what I did is I took those numbers and projected them out for the end of the school year. And it says projected until 6/13. I meant to put 6/23, so that's my mistake. Okay, so I'll move on. Any questions on that? Great. These are administrations for medications thus far. I didn't want to put in thus far for 2017, but as you can see, our projected number for general medications at the end of the year will be over 13,000 meds given out, and that includes, by the way, insulin. I have insulin in another line, but that 13,000 is inclusive. We've doubled our epinephrine administration this year, but, you know, these are low numbers, so a 100% increase doesn't really mean that much. In the report, you'll see that I put 5 in parentheses, because I think someone forgot to I'm pretty sure we gave 5 EpiPens this year. It's in the back of my head. So I just wanted to mention that. What is not included in these med administrations are just giving ibuprofen for headaches, Tylenol, cramps, whatever people come in for. That type of medication is not included in that. Okay. And another thing that's not mentioned here is 911 calls. They've been half this year than they were last year. And I dug a little deeper, the only thing I could find is mental health related 911 calls have gone down quite a bit. So let's hope that continues to be the case. And that's mostly at the high school level. So we'll just talk briefly about epinephrine. Oh, there's the 5 in parentheses. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this is a bill. I don't know if this has come across anybody's desk, but the Massachusetts Medical Society, the MMS, has proposed a bill to have parents not bring EpiPens to school, that the schools will provide them. We do have stock EpiPens, we always have. And except we could probably put forth a policy in which we require it for field trips, but it's a little concerning. Now, this is at the state level, so it's up for vote. And so if anybody wants to weigh in on it, I highly suggest they do that now. The Department of Public Health is against this bill. I don't know how the Department of Education stands on it. EpiPens are ridiculously expensive. For those that know, they've gone up exponentially. We won't get into the ethics of that right now, but Mylan just got a kick in the butt with the massive recall recently, so that was interesting. Mylan does give us stock EpiPens for free. I apply every year for a grant, and we get free EpiPens for the schools, which saves us thousands of dollars, because I tried to price out Mylan EpiPens, and the cheapest I could get them was at Costco for $600 and something for a twin pack. So we can go to, now there's generic. Well, the cheapest I could get on the generic was $269, and that was pulling strings for a twin pack. So they are very expensive even for the generics. So this year, we had to buy some because of the recall with Mylan. There was a delay, and we needed them as soon as possible because ours were expiring, so we had to buy them, and that hurt a lot. It killed me because shortly after we got ours from More Medical Supply, Mylan sent the box. Oh. That hurt. That was a bad day, but that's okay. We move forward. So we have given mostly stock EpiPens. Most of the EpiPens that we administered in the district this year were actually stock. Some new cases of kids needing them. We have a lot more orders on file than 234, but I estimate 234 kids in the district as opposed to 199, which I think was 2 years ago. Maybe 3, I think it was 2. Okay.
Can we ask a question now
Sure.
about this?
Go ahead.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we had to have only stock EpiPens, how many would you think we would have to have
It's a good
in order? I mean, we've only used 5. I realize, I mean, I too had children that went to school with them, and, you know, I don't know how many we went through, but, you know, how many would you feel like you had to have in stock?
Depends on how many kids in the school have active.
Right.
So and it also depends on field trips. So I mean, there's a lot of other.
Right. Yeah.
You know, do we want to keep one in the nurse's office and by a gym and by the cafeteria where a lot of things happen? I would be comfortable. Now, remember, they come in 2 different doses, so it's a 2-pack of 2 different doses. So we have 4 minimally in each school, 2 of each dose. I would be comfortable with. I'm okay with that for now, but then we have to restock what we use, and it doesn't always come in overnight.
Yeah. Right.
So in the larger schools, I would have to say 4 for each size dose.
Right. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about that too. The different size EpiPens. How do you know which, if you're using your stock ones, how do you know for each child which one you're going to use?
General weight.
Okay, I know, so you just eyeball it.
We eyeball a child,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they're a tiny little thing, we give the junior. Even if a child is on the cusp and you give a larger dose, you're not doing harm to that child.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not gonna sit there and weigh them.
Yeah, that's,
But, yeah, we eyeball it.
okay.
And, yeah.
What's the shelf life?
It's about a little over a year, if you're lucky.
So you'd be looking to restock every year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I may just follow up?
Go ahead.
When I taught a million years ago, it was the responsibility of the parent to notify, provide, and provide an extra one or an updated one on, I mean, we'd communicate. So the intent of the state is for the school to do all of that, or would the family still be allowed?
Oh, the family would be allowed to, but it would.
It's to offset the expense.
It's to offset the expense. Yeah, this was proposed by a physician. Now, I'm a medical provider. I just gave an EpiPen 2 weeks ago and then wrote the prescription for him as he was getting let out in the ambulance. And we had a couple of extra in the clinic that I work at. We had a couple of extras and that were going to expire in August, and we had our new stock. So I said, here, take these. You know, I hope I'm not being recorded right now. Delegation of medication. But yeah, it's just so expensive, you know. But yeah, so parents could still bring them in, absolutely. And, you know, my feeling is maybe kids should just have them in their backpacks as well.
If I may, last one, I promise.
That's okay.
If a family can't afford it right now, is that, we don't deny them field trips and things of that nature, do
Oh,
we?
no, of course not.
Okay, thank you.
Of course not, no, we never do that.
Thank you.
And we do teach, the teachers get trained every year, and the cafeteria staff and whomever else needs to be trained is trained every year. We have to do that by state mandate, so, yeah.
Dr. Seuss.
I was just wondering, so what do you think about this new piece of legislation? I mean, you seem to sort of see both sides, or do you not want to say?
So, yeah, that's why I was asking about being recorded, because,
You are being
Mass
recorded.
DPH says, no, we don't like this. And, you know, as a provider, I get it. I really do. They are expensive. And so, parents are going to need them anyway. And so, and we have given more than what the state said. Well, you know, most places are only giving 1 or 2 a year. Well, we've given 5, you know, or 4. Documented as 4, but I think we've given 5. So, yeah, I do see both sides. I actually wrote to the Mass Medical Society a couple of weeks ago and said, well, why don't we do what they do at the MIT clinic, which is you keep ampules of epinephrine, and we just draw it up in a syringe. The nurse draws it up in a syringe, not a teacher, and give it. I mean, that's what they do in hospitals. That's what they do in clinics. Why don't we do it? You know what the cost is? $10.
Interesting.
Okay, at best.
Interesting.
And that's with a specialized syringe so that you can't screw up, or it's pretty hard to anyway. But that's our scope of practice. The nurses in the schools, their scope of practice is that they can do that. And if we're doing that in hospitals, why can't we do it anywhere else? I don't expect a teacher to do that. I still think we need stock EpiPens for teachers. But if you look at the way, and I have it actually on here, this is from the Mass Medical Society. This is exactly how they wrote their proposal. It specifically says an auto-injector. Well, why does it have to be an auto-injector? Not doing auto-injectors in the hospitals or in the clinics at MIT. I only know that because I have a grad student working for me that was working there. So why can't we do that? We'll see. I don't know what they'll propose.
So I just want to say, as a parent whose kid has an EpiPen, but for an extremely rare thing that she would never encounter in school, it's sort of a frustration that they keep expiring, because we know that this thing that she's allergic to, she's not going to encounter in school, and yet we still have to replenish it.
Right. So that's another reason I'm on
yeah,
the fence. I get both sides of the debate. I really do. And I'm not going to take a position on it. Or the parents just bring in 1. I mean, I've had some pushback from some nurses in the past. No, we need 2. And no, we don't really need 2, because we can use our stock if we have to. So I do see both sides.
Mr. Gardner.
Yes. So I do want to send you the Shrewsbury policy on this.
I saw that.
Okay. So I'm on the policy. I'm chair of the policy committee this year, and so that might be something we want to look at. it's sort of a happy medium. It says if there is a supply, then you don't have to require parents to bring it in. You know, I can't believe there's only 234 because everybody I know seems to have a kid with an allergy. I do as well. And what gets you is we do have one in her backpack because she goes to other people's houses after school, but she also has to have one given to the school. So it seems like there should be some flexibility in there that can help us. So hopefully we'll look at that during the year.
I agree with that, and I think that the physician that proposed this bill is from Shrewsbury, and that's why, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where he's from.
Great, thanks.
Just a little FYI. Any other questions on this? Okay, so defibrillators, I don't know if anyone received phone calls over the summer there was a senator's office that they were calling us. They were calling everybody. Do you have defibrillators in the building? And I'm like, why are they calling us? Of course we have defibrillators in the buildings, but it's because this was getting ramped up and it was passed at the state level that we had to have defibrillators in all the buildings. So we were well ahead of the curve on that, so it was a non-issue. And that did go through in January of this year that they had to have them. Defibrillators for sporting events is another issue altogether. I'm not gonna go there on this talk. Narcan is also being told by the state that we have to have Narcan in the schools, which we do. So I just wanted to let you know that that's not an issue. Also, all of our emergency bags have it, and thank goodness we've never needed it. So I did want to talk about SBIRT briefly. We talked about that last year at the school committee.
Could you, just SBIRT stands for?
Okay, it's screening, brief intervention, and referral for treatment.
Okay.
So this is a mandated screening by the state. This was the pilot year. So last year we got a grant to pilot it. There was not that many districts in the state that got the grant because people didn't think about applying for it, but they gave us $10,000 and we piloted it and with the 7th grade this year, and it went incredibly well. We had Ivy LaPlante run it. She was who sat with me last year when we talked about it, and she did a phenomenal job. She really did. Next year we are required to run it at both the middle school and the high school level. We picked the 2 grades that the state recommended, 7th grade and 9th grade. This is a screening tool. We use the CRAFT tool, the CRAFT 2 actually, it's slightly modified. I did put a URL up there for anybody that wants to look at it. We use the same screening tool in medical offices quite often. You can use different screening tools. You're not obligated to use theirs. But this is what we're happy with. And we had mostly nurses running this on a screening level. And we also had a social worker, a part-time social worker, who was wonderful running it, running these questions to the students. It is incredibly time-consuming. I sort of have ambiguous feelings because I feel like if the state's going to mandate it, the state should be helping to fund it. It's really expensive to run this because it takes weeks. Because the minimum time you're going to spend with a student is 5 minutes, and that's a one-on-one screening. So it's really time-consuming. We did it during phys ed this year. And it worked really well. It was very smooth operation. We were one of the first districts to have it done for the state and submit our information to them. So we're all set with that. We don't have anything to worry about. We had a low probability, and which equated to low rate of positive screenings, which meant we had very few people that were really at risk for this in the 7th grade. We'll see what happens next year on the 9th. I think that was, so we do have to get sub-nurses to cover the nurse's office while the nurses are doing this, because it's, like I said, very time-consuming.
Go ahead, Bill.
Briefly, state is not supposed to put an unfunded mandate on it, and this sounds like an unfunded mandate, so perhaps we can get from the administration an estimate of how much it's costing us to do this.
It's probably going, well, I have a,
I don't want a ballpark number tonight. I'd
Oh, okay.
like a
Well,
real number that we can
have a
go
rough
and
estimate.
squawk with, you know.
Yeah, no, I have a rough estimate. It costs between $2,500 and $3,000 to do per school.
Per school.
Per school. Well, part of that is because I use a DPH grant, another grant that I have, to give a stipend to Ivy for running it. Because, see, she's also with the Arlington Youth Health and Safety Coalition. So she can take these numbers to SAMHSA, which is which is where her grant comes from, and also use our data for that too. So it's a win-win situation financially. But I'm going to be offsetting that through the DPH grant that we have, which is not generally allotted for that, but we can sort of use our grants as we see fit, and then the state gives us the okay, yeah, you can use the funds for that, that's fine.
No, it will help for our squawking, and we'll probably go and, or I would probably go at the very least and see if other school committees are encountering the same issue and want to squawk in harmony.
Well, they will.
So that to have the exact mandate, you know, the wording of the mandate, you must do this, who's saying we must do this, and how much it's costing us to do this, that information would be a good thing to have so we could address
Sure.
that. Because, you know, budgets are tight enough as it is
Right.
without the state coming in and telling us to do stuff that costs us money that we have to divert from elsewhere.
Right. Well, not every district piloted it this year. We had to because we took the funding last year, which paid for it for this year.
Yeah, but if
even
this
though-
is a mandate coming in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think that's gonna be like a to be determined. So we'll see how that plays out. I am curious, like a place like Boston, how are they gonna fund this? That's a lot of money. I will say, it would be great if we could get guidance in on this too, because they actually have more training to ask these questions. And we had a social worker, you know, we paid her to work the extra time and help us with this, and she was phenomenal. Personally, I think she was the best person at it, to be honest, so.
I mean, if it's a condition of a grant and we're getting money from the grant, it's,
Well,
you know, it wouldn't define legally an unfunded mandate, but if this is something that's coming around as, okay, the pilot's done, we're, you know, school districts are gonna have to do this, and, you know,
Right.
we wanna keep our eyes open.
yeah, I agree with that. They haven't turned around and said, okay, we're just gonna, you know, continue to give you $10,000 every year to run this. They haven't done that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's gonna happen, to be honest with you, but it would be nice. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, this is just the questions that we ask on the craft screening tool, so you have that to look at if you need to. So field trips, I just wanted to bring this up. We have I'll be getting into the ICC grant next, which is the Innovative Care Coordinator grant, but we have a very large increase in students with diabetes this year in our district. It's almost epidemiological, to be honest with you. And you have to have a nurse on a field trip for anyone with a serious medical condition that requires either assessment and/or intervention/treatment, which could be medication. That does not include students that need EpiPens, because we can train people to give EpiPens, but we can't train people to give insulin. So let's say you have, for example, at the Audison Middle School, we have 5 students with diabetes in the 6th grade. I've never seen that happen before. It's very interesting. And there's a lot of field trips. We have 3 6th grade field trips going out 3 days in a row in June. So we have to send nurses, unless the parent of the student with diabetes goes on the field trip.
I don't understand that. I mean, if the parent can, why can't the teacher be trained to do whatever the parent is? Is it a liability issue?
Oh, yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
issue, okay.
yeah. And it goes against the Americans with Disabilities Act. At least that's what I was told by state DPH. Could be the same thing, if you have somebody with an active seizure disorder and they need, the treatment for a seizure disorder is actually a controlled substance. So you have to, if that, you have to send a nurse for that, you know? So anything where, you know, in a hospital to give insulin, you have to have 2 nurses check it at the same, together. I can't just draw up insulin and give it to a patient. 2 nurses have to sign off on it.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I remember there was a paste, if a child had an insulin shock, came out of a tube and put it on the inside. Is that to deal with the insulin shock?
Well, we can give that if they're conscious.
I mean, we were told to do that as teachers.
Sure.
Back then.
Yeah, we can, but we don't know whether it's not up to a teacher, purview of a teacher to know whether that child is hyperglycemic, or in that case that you mentioned, hypoglycemic. That's not, yeah.
I don't want to belabor it. The child was identified to us, and I
Sure.
kept it in my desk as
Sure.
long as that child, and
Yep.
that was part of the information we passed on as the child went up.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a different world.
Much different.
Yeah,
I'm old, I understand now.
The Department of Public Health mandates so much of our practice. In fact, they mandate all of our practice. And this came down a few years ago. The only reason I'm mentioning it now is because it's becoming costly. So much so, sometimes there's more that, you know, if there's multiple field trips going out and we don't have backup and per diem, then we have to hire agency nurses, and that doubles our cost. We've been very lucky, knock on wood, we've had a robust per diem group this year, so we haven't needed agency as much as I predicted. But yeah, that's something that I just wanted people to be aware of.
Yeah. I was interested reading this in your report and wanted to point out that I think that we need to bolster their budget to cover this, because it's not fair to expect that, I mean, it's great if the parent wants to come, but it's not fair to expect that they should go.
Right.
And it's, you know, we
Right.
just need to accept that this is a new and different cost of taking care of our children and plan for it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, we can't deny a child, oh, your parent's not going, you know, you can't go in the field, we can't do that.
Right, well,
yeah.
you wouldn't want to anyway.
Right, of course
And
not.
it's just, we
Of
need
course.
to build this into your budget.
Yep.
It's
Thank you. That would be helpful. And there are a lot of field trips. The other thing, too, is we can't send nurses to field trips outside of the state. So if we send the students to the science camp in Rhode Island, that's a big problem. That's a huge problem, especially with students with diabetes, and I'll tell you why. If they need treatment and assessment in the evening, the camp nurse isn't there. They're not there 24/7. They're only there, and sometimes till 3, maybe 4 in the afternoon. So what do? If a parent goes, great, but if it's out of Massachusetts, we don't have reciprocity, unless I'm licensed in that state. And, you know, we could consider, you know, it's not too terribly difficult getting somebody licensed in another state, but it doesn't happen overnight. You have to apply. And it costs money. So these are all things, like Canopy Lake, can't send a nurse. Can't send a nurse. It's New Hampshire, and they're really tough.
So what do we do, hire a nurse from New Hampshire?
You're gonna have to hire an agency nurse from New Hampshire, or send a nurse that has dual licensure. Which I don't know, I don't think we do have anyone with dual licensure. We did at one point, but, yeah.
I don't think so.
So these are just all things to think about that I don't expect people to just know, but just trying to make people aware. All right. So the Innovative Care Coordinator grant we had for the last 3 years, we did focus on mental health issues, which was a very big issue. And it was, I think, successful. The state did cut everybody's funding on that grant, so we lost a little over 50% of it. And when we had the Arlington Education Foundation grant, what came out of that was learning about the students with diabetes, the case management that went around that. So we have this wonderful nurse, Lauren Connors, who this is almost like a subspecialty of hers, is diabetes, type 1. And she is now our care coordinator. It's been enormously successful. Last year, we had 9 students in the district with diabetes. Presently, we had 13. Up until last month, we had 14, and next year, we're projected to have 15, minimally. That number might go up. So that's a huge increase in just a little over 12 months. So she's been able to go on medical appointments with parents, to talk with medical providers in regards to children who are at risk. I think most of the parents in this town are pretty darn savvy about their children's medical conditions, are on top of it. So, but she's been a wonderful resource. I think that the timing was almost karmic. It was really adventitious that we switched it over to diabetes. And she presented at the state meeting, Innovative Care Coordinator meeting last month, and everybody was clapping for her after she presented the data, and now they want us to publish our data, which is exciting. Well, actually, we have no choice but to publish our data, because we just signed the contract for next year, and they told us that was one of the stipulations, is that we either had to present this at a much higher level, either nationally, in terms of the work that we're doing, or at a state level, or we have to publish in a journal. So you'll get copies of that one,
Good.
if that's what we do. I don't know what we're gonna do yet.
This is great what you're doing. I had a question. In the report, it says that you've got 16 children currently with diabetes.
Yeah, we have what we had. Yeah, that was actually a mistake. That was, I thought we had 16, so that's my fault.
Okay. No,
We had one that just left the district, and then we have another one that's coming in, but isn't here yet. So I was off by one, so it's not 16.
Okay.
It's currently.
But I'm still wondering, this is beyond a normal amount from what I can tell, and I'm just wondering, are you discussing this with the Department of Public Health, or?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's five, I mean, the 16 I calculate is like 5 to 8 times the normal frequency that you would expect in this population.
Well, we're starting to see this in other districts too, so we're not, this isn't isolated to our district. So we are starting to see this more and more often, which is why they were glad we switched it from mental health to diabetes. So I agree, from an epidemiological or biostatistical perspective, it's high. It's gone up very quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
But we're making sure people who might be
Oh,
interested
they
in
know.
finding out.
Well, I
know.
have to submit this data
Okay.
to the state every month.
Okay.
They're well aware of our numbers.
Okay,
They
great.
know.
I just want to be sure.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
the state's, well, yeah, that's why they had us present at the meeting, because they know what's going on. We've had conversations about it, so it's all good. Okay, so I apologize for that. Projected 15 next year. So the other thing we did with the money is we bought iPads for all the nurses in the schools, because most of the students with diabetes in our district have continuous glucose monitors on them. So the only one that's FDA approved is the Dexcom, to the best of my knowledge. I know it's FDA approved. I know that there are others attempted to be FDA approved. This is great because when a child's blood sugar goes too high or too low, we know. It alerts, the iPad sends an alert signal and the nurse is aware of what's going on in the building. The only time, handful of times, Wi-Fi wasn't so great, so we had some problems accessing it, but we have backup. But, I mean, what did we do before we had continuous glucose monitors? Child said they felt a little dizzy or lightheaded, and we checked them. We still check everybody by blood sugar, and sometimes we're still doing it, because to be honest with you, even though these are FDA approved, they're not that accurate sometimes. So we will still continue to use backup methods to check students, but it's been great, because if we have somebody that we see their numbers are low, we can go find them in the building and say, hey, let's check you out and see what's going on. So it's been great. I have to say, the technology is wonderful, and it just goes to show you that this is where medicine is going, is with the technology. So the infrastructure to support it is going to be important. You can't see this, I'm sorry. I apologize, but maybe on your own computers you'll be able to expand it. The identifiers of student names have all been changed to completely different initials. This is the part of the report that we sent to the state so that they had the information on how we're tracking students. One of the things that came out of this, which is wonderful, is that these kids are not missing school because they're diabetic. They're not. Unless they're newly diagnosed, they are in school even more so than some kids who have no known medical diagnoses. So to say that absenteeism is directly correlated to chronic disease is, in this case, not the case at all. And that, I think, is going to be where research goes in terms of absenteeism. If it's not directly related to medical conditions such as this. So I just want to touch on Gibbs briefly. Sent out the architectural recommendations. I did recommend, because of the structure of the school, that they have 2 AEDs in the school, just because of the layout. And I am recommending, because of the number of students that are going to have diabetes coming in all at once, that they may need 1.5 school nurse positions when they open. We are projected to have 2 students, only 2 at the moment, but that number could change when the first year that Gibbs is open. Millbrook, I just wanted to mention on that, we had a student at one of the schools that needed daily medications, so it pulled a nurse out of the office to run down, or myself, to run down and give the medication. It was nice to get out of the office and see the location and what they were doing. That was great, but it also put a good stress on the department. We are using a Department of Public Health grant to fund a what we call a resource nurse, and they job share. We have someone 2 days a week and someone 3 days a week. That position is funded through DPH for their salary, and we've been able to utilize that person when that person was available. But if we have really low coverage on a particular day, we've had days, there's 3 nurses out, there's 9 schools, and I have to go myself, or we have to maybe just have 1 nurse at the high school, which has happened actually frequently. If it's a high school nurse that goes, then there's only 1 left behind. So this is something to think about as well, in terms of what their needs might be. Now, that student no longer needs daily medications. Actually, the particular child needed twice daily medications when that person first went to the program. So that was, I was just like, oh my gosh. But then it went down to once a day, and now it's a non-issue. We're fortunate in that respect, but it's just something to also think about in terms of the future of Millbrook and the medical needs of these students. If somebody has a headache, we have to go down there, assess the student, and give them some ibuprofen. I just wanted to mention a couple of small detail notes. As I mentioned before, we did have a really robust per diem staff. One of student was a previous Arlington student, so that was kind of cool. She is working out really well. We have had a decent turnover this year, which is not common, and it's been a great year. They're really wonderful new staff, and I couldn't be happier. A lot of our nurses either have a graduate degree or getting graduate degrees. So we have a few that are becoming nurse practitioners, and one that is going to school for nursing leadership. I've been on the Department of Public Health Evaluation Committee every month this year. It is through Boston University, bless you. And unfortunately, we haven't done any research this year because it's Boston University's first year out running the DPH School Health Unit education. So all this year has been working on how to teach us how to do research. I'll leave that there. And we are also overseeing a small grant. We are partnered with Somerville School System, and we oversee a small grant for them. And then if they have questions about anything, I act as a consultant for them. And I also act as a consultant for all the private schools in the district. The DPH grant has covered all of our professional development. And I think that's it.
Any questions? Yeah.
Thank you. This is, clearly I'm interested in it. The one thing you didn't mention that's in your report is about the thing that Kara Dalton has been doing.
Oh,
at
yes,
Hardy.
thank you.
And I thought I don't think you have to go into it now. I wish it would be brought at another time.
No, that's,
Or in depth.
well, I'll just briefly talk about the statistics, so thank you for bringing that up. The nice thing about electronic medical records is I can look at numbers, and the Hardy numbers are half what they were, which is very impressive. When we see numbers climbing, Audison's numbers are really high. They can see upwards of 90-something students a day. It's not unusual. Now, that includes medication administrations, right? Thompson School, same thing. High number consistently, but Hardy cut in half. And so what is that? Is it the responsive classrooms? Is it the mindfulness work that the 3 people that I mentioned on there, Kara Dalton, Deborah Mutis, and Allison Cox, have been doing, going into the classrooms and teaching? I actually sat in on one of the classes. It was really good. Kara should be a teacher, as well as a nurse, or teach nursing. But it just, the numbers are impressive. So I think that needs to be explored.
That's what, I think it'd be really interesting to hear more about what it is they're doing, and could we try and duplicate it in another school and figure out,
Right.
can we make it happen again? Because it's just great. With this training, the kids are having half or less visits to the nurse, which is...
You're keeping them in the classroom,
Yeah.
which is what we really try to do. Some people think, we're like Nurse Ratchet, which, and they look, oh, that's my old nurse, watch the old word. But we really do try to get these kids back to class. I mean, sometimes they're coming down for the most innocuous things. It's just like, what are you doing here? See that tiny little dot? That hurts, I mean, like, but then there's certainly plenty of kids that are coming down for absolutely valid reasons, of course, right? So, but whatever they're doing, something's working.
Yeah.
Because numbers don't lie.
Right.
So I thank you for reminding me, because it is in the report right at the beginning. And
Yeah. Thank you.
All set? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great presentation, we appreciate it.
Oh, you mean it wasn't boring? It wasn't monotonous?
No, it was great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good week.
The numbers.
You're ready for Ted.
Oh, TED Talks?
Amy Spear from the Arlington Education Foundation is going to give us a report on the work of the foundation this past school year, for this school year.
Great. All right. Thank you for having me. I think most of you know about Arlington Education Foundation, but I just wanted to give you an overview of kind of the breadth of what we've been doing and what we've some of the notable grants in the last few years. So is it coming up?
We don't feed the mice.
I got to tell you, it's actually pretty inspiring for me to come after 3 presentations that have been so affected by the work that AEF has been doing. So it's been that was pretty neat. From Dan Sheldon, AEF through the Technology Initiative brought back computer science with the $50,000 grant that we gave to bring that back after it had been cut from the district. We also funded Terry Dash's new curriculum in DML, which used to be, I forget what it was called before in 6th grade, something before DML.
Yes, she was in middle school.
Stuck. Of course, I gave my copy of my presentation to Dave.
We have it.
Do you want to borrow it, Amy? Want to borrow a copy? We all
Yeah,
have it.
we can.
We all got it, don't we? Jeff, we can put it online afterwards. We all have it here.
There we go.
There you go.
So what are my controls here to the right? There we go. Okay. So AEF has been around for 25 years, and we currently award about $125,000 a year to the Arlington Public Schools at all levels, including Menotomy Preschool. Last Sunday night, we actually awarded our second grant to Menotomy Preschool. And it really affects every single child in the Arlington Public Schools in one way or another throughout all the different grants. We are, for those of you who don't know a little history, there's the Arlington Education, I'm going to get it wrong, AEF, Arlington
Education Enrichment Fund.
Enrichment Fund, thank you, and the Arlington Schools Foundation, which were 2 sister organizations, one focused on the big grants, one focused on the little grants. They merged in 2010 to become what is now AEF. We are a completely volunteer-run board. There are about 10 of us. We are looking for a few new board members to grow since we have a lot of work that we want to do. We also have somebody from the school committee sits. Kiersey's been sitting on our board for a few years, and Len is now the representative for the school committee. We have Julie Dunn from the district, who also sits on the board, and we have a teacher representative who's currently Christina Perkowski, who's a 5th grade teacher at the Pierce School. So we have those perspectives on the board as well. And then we have friends of the board who are what we call school reps, or kind of our pulse on every school community, whether it's talking to the teachers about the grants that are available to them or talking to the parents about the work that we're doing and trying to help us raise the funds. So we raise money through a number of different things. One of the big things is our STARS teacher recognition program. STARS is school teachers are really special. That's been around for a while. We do a fall and a spring, and we raise about $30,000 through that. Through a small $20 donation, the money comes to AEF. It appreciates, gives teacher an appreciation through a certificate that they get, and ultimately the funds go back into the classroom that are available to teachers. We also have business sponsors. This is something we've been growing, and in 2017 we grew quite a bit. We have raised about $17,000 just through local businesses. That's about 28 businesses. Dr. Melita, who's a Dallin parent and also owner of Belmont Pediatric Dentistry and Belmont Orthodontics, donated $5,000 to AEF this year, and we created a new platinum sponsorship for for that. And we have a number of other organizations that have kicked in to support our work, and we're very appreciative of that, and we hope to continue to grow that. So if anybody has connections with businesses, we'd love to continue to build that program. We also have the Trivia Bee. Many of you have participated in the Trivia Bee, donning your hats and your costumes. And that's, this year we introduced something new. We had fifth graders participate, which was a hoot and a really big hit, and it is here to stay. It was
fun,
a great way to get fifth graders involved. For us, they added so much energy to the event. It was really, really neat, and Dallin came out on top. But every elementary school fielded a team of 3 fifth graders, and a few did have competitions for who got to get those slots. We had to do a lottery system, so that was neat. And we'll continue to do that. I think that's now a new tradition. We have our fall fundraiser, which happens every year. Restaurant Olivio is our new location. We also want to grow this. We see it as a great way to invite donors in, community members, and we have a lot of grant recipients. So it's a little bit turning into more of a showcase where we have an opportunity for grant recipients to show their work, show the benefits of what they've done with the grants from AEF, and have you guys, anybody, donors, ask questions and just learn a little bit more. And then obviously we do the good old-fashioned fundraising appeals as well. So the different grant categories, we have 4 primary grant categories. The largest is the school improvement category. So that's anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 a year. It's typically a multi-year grant, more systemic long-term change. The last school improvement grant category grant that we had was the Ottoson Middle School. That was a 4-year grant where I like to think of it as making sausage in government process. So it was a school culture grant. So the middle school teachers formed a leadership committee and really learned how to work well with one another, communication between teachers and the administration, teachers and the community and the students. And so it really affected the ultimate school culture in that school community. And 2 outcomes for that were also the, I'm losing it now, the advisory program came out of that, and also I forget what it's called, where the vice principals are now each kind of tied to a grade level. What's that?
You said it.
The houses, yeah. I forget what the technical term is. So that came out of that. So this year has been a little bit of an off year for a specific school improvement category. So instead we've done 2 expansion, one expansion program, the teacher leadership, which is mentoring elementary teachers in literacy. It was a development expansion grant, $10,000 last year, and we funded $30,000 this year to expand that to really solidify that program within the district so that can now be expanded to maybe to math or science, and we're proud of that one. And recently is the Gibbs Planning Grant, which we're very excited for. Laura came to us and said, we'd like this development expansion grant. I know your budget is $10,000, but we really need $15,000 in order to make this work. And we said, that's great, but no, we'd like to give you 30, because the Arlington donors have been, and the businesses and everything, we were in a position where we could give more than that, and we felt very strongly that the planning that needs to go into that school is so critical for the district. So we were very pleased to be able to be in the position to support that so that those funds can go elsewhere in the district where they're needed. So we look forward to hearing more about that. And then in the coming year, I'll talk about a little bit about this. The Safe and Supportive Schools Initiative is currently going on right now. That was a development expansion grant of $10,000 last year. It's now in the planning phases. By the end of the school year, each school will have an action plan on social, emotional, programmatic needs, and we anticipate partnering with the district for funding the implementation phase of that program. And I anticipate that being our school improvement level for the next couple of years, and in a partnership to help fund those important social emotional programs, whether it's responsive classroom or the cultural competency, or a lot of things could come out of that. So we'll wait and see. So I mentioned that's the development expansion grants, which are $10,000 grants. We typically fund 3 of them a year. Safe and Supportive Schools last year, we also funded a $10,000 makerspace, which I know there was an elevator issue, so I don't know whether the equipment has gotten into the high school yet. In the past, we've also funded things like concentration tools, which was an elementary-wide grant to all 7 elementary schools, where each school got a allotted budget, and they had self-regulating tools that were available to every student, not just students on IEPs and not just students who get to go to a special room and have these services, but they were available in every classroom. Some classrooms called them cool toolkits, so that whether they need, the lap pad, or they need a bouncy ball, or they need something to, for their hands, that it helped to destigmatize the need, and also supported students who weren't necessarily on IEPs. So that was a successful grant that we did. And Lucy Calkins is one years ago that we funded that has continued to grow in the district. We've also done special initiatives, really one special initiative that was quite notable. 2013 to 2015 was a 3-year initiative where we partnered very closely with Laura. And we said, well, we want to partner with you on technology. What do you need? What are your priorities? And so she very clearly said, here's A, here's B, here's C. So year 1 was to bring back computer science to the high school. And we raised $50,000 from the community, above and beyond what our normal fundraising and grant giving. And we brought back computer science. So the program that Dan Sheldon was here talking about, from 0 to 100, that was jump-started by AEF. The next year, we focused on the middle school. We helped to fund the curriculum development of the DML program that Terry was talking about. And I like to say that we put the tech in tech. So the Audition Technology and Engineering program, we funded the iPads and the 3D printers to make that a really very rich curriculum for the students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And the third year, we went big or we were going to go home. So the first year we raised $50,000, the second year we raised $35,000, and the third year we raised $100,000. And in the third year we funded the digital media lab that David Ardito was talking about. We also funded a laptop cart for the science department in the high school, so that they can, whether it's chemistry or physics or biology, they can use these robust computers for data modeling and simulations and data modeling. We also funded additional equipment to the middle school for their growing enrollment. Did I miss anything? I think that's all of it. Innovations and Educations grants are the grants that most people know us for. They're kind of the fun little grants. Typically, it's a classroom teacher. It could be a grade level. It could be a department head. It could be a principal that applies for these grants. Their grant cycle is in the spring and the fall. By the way, the school improvement is really, we partner with Dr. Bodie and figure out, what's the year, what's the next goal for that one. The development expansion grants are invitation grants, and then the innovations and education grants are open to anybody. So this could be a parent. This could be, it could even be AYCC who wants to partner and has some tie into the curriculum. In fact, we very much would like to partner with outside organizations in the town, like AYCC or the Human Rights Commission or Arlington Eats, the Food Pantry, what's the other one? AYHSC, forget the student risk.
Student risk.
Yes. Yeah. So we would love I've talked to all of them, think of us as a funding source. If there's a program that they would like to see funded in the schools, if they can find a partner as long as we see a tie to the schools and a commitment to the schools and a curriculum tie or a benefit to the students, we would love to fund those kind of grants. So you guys can help us spread the word for that. Some notable innovations and educations grants, Inside Out Audison that David Ardito talked about, Art Food Community, he also talked about that one. That was a neat one. That was the entire Thompson School K-5. Each student in each grade, they had different focuses. So there might be a Japanese focus or a African focus or something like that. But they all made 2 bowls, one for them to keep and one to put towards the fundraiser. And then in May, at the end of the school year, they had a fundraiser to fill, the idea was to fill those bowls with food. And they sold those bowls, and the event raised $14,000 for Arlington Eats. And it was a really neat, that was two parents who happened to be artists, and they came to us. We supplied the materials, they supplied the time and their kiln. But that was a really great tie to the community. You may see in the spring and the fall, Ms. Rad at the high school does an intro to archaeology dig on the high school lawn. They've found all kinds of neat artifacts from the old buildings that used to be here. So she came to us for funding the startup materials for that grant, and she's gotten recognition in national magazines for that. The Bishop Garden is a neat one. This is parents wanted to have a garden, and the parents came to us for the development of curriculum specifically for the garden. So every single grade level has a written curriculum that brings the students out of the classroom and into this outdoor classroom that's tied specifically to the Bishop Garden, and that continues to go on. And Teo Sinte was, I think, a grant from 2009, maybe, the sister city and the development of the curriculum that was then at the 4th grade, and I believe it's now at the 2nd grade. So that was an Innovations in Education grant. Another relatively new grant category is called the Continuing Scholar Award. And this, we like to think of this as a little bit of a perk for our teachers that work so hard, that if there's something that they're really passionate about, or that they would like to learn, a personal skill that goes above and beyond the normal professional development that they take and get credit for, they can apply for this grant, and it's anywhere from $250 to $2,500. So we have sent teachers to Peru, we've sent teachers to Cuba, Prague. The two teachers that went to the South African Cape Town student trip in February, they actually went on Continuing Scholar Awards. We have funded social workers and PTs to go and learn about how the brain and trauma affects the brain, and how they can better support their students who have gone through trauma. So it's a really kind of a neat, think outside the box type of a grant. So just last Sunday, we had our spring grant cycle, and these are the grants. We funded 8 grants for about $17,000. The high school did well in this particular round. It kind of ebbs and flows. Every school is usually represented, but the high school had quite a few. They were very active this time. The music teacher at the Bishop School wants to teach the 4th grade how to play the ukulele. It's a nice small instrument, and the strings are gentler on your fingers. And he's just he's a rock star. I happen to be a Bishop parent. So Mr. Ham got that grant for his students. There's a grant at the high school for a 360 camera pilot program to continue to expand the visual arts program there. It's going to be used in every program, and it's really a cutting edge technology to bring into that program. It's called the Views 360 program. The Rainbow Alliance, this dovetails nicely with what's going on in town, but Anna Watson, who's well known in the community, applied for a grant for an after-school program at Brackett. This is any kids who are interested, open to 4th and 5th graders. Not just it'll be held at Brackett, but they're open to all district 4th and 5th graders, really for giving visibility and support to students who have, whose families, friends, relatives identify as LGBTQ+ in the community. The Unity Public Art Project at the high school will also celebrate diversity through something that they'll do that hopefully will be up by Town Day, where there'll be 32 different posts. Each post has an identifier. I don't speak English as my native language, or I identify as LGBTQ. And there's a different string, and then you kind of, ultimately it intertwines, and you show how everybody is really connected. So I'll be very interested to see that one come out. Virtual reality and foreign language. The foreign language in the high school, they're thinking outside the box, and how can they, put tech into their curriculum, and they will be getting the Google Cardboard devices to really immerse their students in virtual reality, in experiencing what it's like to be in an international culture. So that's a pretty neat one. Google Read and Write, also at the high school. This is a pilot. It'll be a very small subset of some students in the special education department, but we see this as an opportunity for the school and for the high school to really see how Google Read and Write can be used more broadly in the district to support students who are maybe struggling a little bit. I mentioned we had a Monadabi preschool grant. We're excited about this since they qualified, and this is a social emotional where they will be doing mindfulness and yoga and the preschool to support their students and help them calm, since they have a very, very diverse group of learners. And that includes training for the teachers as well. And then the PE program in the 9th grade will be getting heart rate monitors to help teach the kids how to learn more about how their heart rate affects how their effort affects their heart rate, and just learning about physical fitness in general. So none of this would be possible without the generosity of the Arlington community, and we are completely dependent. Sometimes people think that we get grants from the state or something like that. No, we are a grant-giving organization ourselves, and it all comes, 100% of it comes from the Arlington community. So we are eternally grateful for that, and these are just some pictures of some of the things that we've done recently. So thank you.
Thank you. That was great. We're getting behind, so I'm going to limit
Yes, I
questions.
know.
Go ahead. Yeah, but not to your fault. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just one quick question, because I know it's of interest to the parents in the community. Could you just talk quickly a little bit more about the Gibbs Planning Grant? I assume some
Sure.
of it is for training programs for teachers, for responsive classroom, and I was just wondering what else is involved in there.
So, well, actually, Laura might be able to talk a little bit more about that, but it's a planning grant where the bulk of the funds will be for professional development. There is a teacher stipend portion of that, so that the teachers have the time, outside of the classroom to get together once that team. I don't know whether that team has been formed, the Gibbs, whether that teams have been formed already.
Yes, so
or
we
not,
have 3 teams, one group that's looking at operational issues, including scheduling, one group that's looking at community issues, community building issues, and social emotional support, and one group that's looking at curriculum and instruction and supports for students who either need to have it enrichment or to have need assistance. There's 3 curriculum directors that are in chairing each committee, and there's a teacher who co-chairs the committee. And they've met with Kristen DeFrancisco, the named principal, this morning to put together a schedule for their times to meet.
So is this during the summer, the planning? Is this all next year?
There's 4 hours from now until the end of the school year to plan for what they will do in the summer.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
And then now that team is formed, as I understand it, so you asked about responsive classrooms. So that team will decide what the training is that they want to take. Responsive classroom is certainly one of the options, since that's been successful in other schools, but that's not decided upon yet.
We have
But the
it
grant
on
would
schedule.
fund whatever the
money's
professional
available, too.
development that they choose.
Okay,
Right.
great, thanks.
Yeah.
That was great, and we
Great.
appreciate everything AAF does for the town, so thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. I don't think you get paid, do you?
No.
So thanks for all your leadership.
No, I don't. We're all volunteers, yeah.
I think everybody in town knows this thing runs because of your leadership, so thank you
Oh,
very much.
well,
for
thank you.
all you do there.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the first reading of the 2017-2018 school calendar. It's a first reading only, so we're not approving it tonight, but we are approving it next week. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Bodie about this first look at the calendar? No.
Just to clarify, we've seen the calendar, but it's the first look at the extra details, right?
With all the details, right?
Yes, right. Okay.
Anybody have any
No,
questions
that's it.
for Dr. Bodie? Yep. You can ask me, but I want the answer.
At a middle school forum just last week, one of the teachers was talking about the possibility of moving the middle school conferences later, but it looks like that's not going to happen next year.
Well, we had some discussion about this, and actually, Juliana Keys, who is the vice president, might want to talk a little bit about this, because we've worked together on this very issue.
Yeah, it's something that you're going to get differing opinions about when the best time for conferences is. Overall, the votes, the opinion was we did them earlier this year, sort of right at the end of the first term, and parents liked that, or teachers liked that. They felt it, it tied very well to the ending of the first marking term. We condensed the conferences into a shorter time period, so everybody was getting pretty much the same conference, as opposed to stretching them out over 2, 3, even 4 weeks, where you're almost telling the parents at the end a very different story than you were able to tell parents in the beginning. So I think that for one more year at least, they want to keep going with this.
Yep, Dr. Seuss.
Just one question. I know that Dr. Janger had given a survey out to parents to see how they liked what we did this year. Do we know the results of that survey? Are we going to continue that?
Well, I can't speak to that, but I did have conversations with Dr. Janger about this, and going back to his staff, that they pretty much wanted to follow what they did this year. So it was basically, obviously the dates are different, but basically taking this year, map it into next year, because I think it's the same idea. It worked pretty well. Let's try it and see if we could agree after 2 more years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or I should say, after 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Paul?
We will be coordinating major events with the school committee calendar.
Well, now that you mentioned that, there is one I'm going to point out, and that is in December. Here's the dilemma. It's the December 14th meeting. That is also the elementary conference night.
No, that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
As long as it's not a big event.
Well, there's 2 members that have
Elementary
conferences
conference,
potentially that night.
But there
they
usually are
could be-
a couple of different options for conferences, right? I mean, it's not
Well,
just
there are.
one
It's-
night for
no,
conferences.
that's just the
Right.
evening conferences. There's other opportunities, exactly so.
I think it's the curriculum nights that are really a problem when they conflict with school committees meetings.
Message has been conveyed very clearly as to trying to avoid, it's really the high school, having the big events on the same night.
So right now, we don't have any conflicts
I
going forward?
don't think so. This is, it
Relating to
wouldn't
what
be
you just said,
reflected
the
in
high
this.
school, I mean, on the
Would-
high school part.
Not that I'm aware of. But this is just the big rocks in the jars right now.
I understand,
Yeah.
but I think, I don't want to speak for the whole committee, but my understanding was, we were asking you to speak to your administrators
Right,
to avoid those going forward with them.
correct.
Thank you.
In fact, had that discussion with the principals about, particularly the high school and the middle school, of not having, those big events on the same night as a school committee meeting. And in fact, Dr. Woods has put the 13th of September, it's not on here because we would not have that on here, but I know that that's the curriculum night where parents come in. Just so that we would avoid the 14th in September. I do not know yet, I don't know if you know from Dr. Janger, no. But everyone is, particularly at the high school, want to avoid the 2 nights.
All right, anything else? Okay. Next week, we do the second reading on the calendar, and that gives everybody time to send emails, questions to Dr. Bodie individually about any issues they might see. Okay, next item on the agenda is the district goal presentation, first reading. We may be able to approve the district goals next week. It may or may not be enough time for subcommittees to meet and discuss it. But just to remind everybody, we theoretically have 3 meetings left, if we want to go all the way to June 22nd. But we really, in all likelihood have 2 meetings left, the 25th of May and the 8th of June. So we have to keep that in mind, yep.
I'd like to remind the chair, going on what you said, CIAA not only has to deal with the district goals, but also
Yep.
the superintendent's goals. Negotiate those with the superintendent, and then bring those back with us.
Yeah, I know.
So-
So we'll try to do everything by June 8th. If we don't, then-
So we will need to coordinate some meeting time.
Yes.
Yes, we do, yeah. We have to do that. We should do that tonight before we
Yeah,
leave.
before we leave, yeah.
Okay, so, go ahead.
I'd also like to convey, so you weren't able to be here for public participation, but the diversity task force did come in and make a lot of good remarks about their concern that the provision of teachers for professional development for cultural proficiency was not included on the current goals, and that they felt that that was they had worked hard to get that on the current year's goals, and they were very disappointed to see that it was not carried over. And you can talk to Karen about what exactly was said and stuff, but I thought you should be aware of that, and both of you, and
All right.
that should be taken into consideration.
You just added, the commitment for this year for administration training was there. The idea back when that was established in this year's goals was that it would be followed up on this year's goals with the teacher training.
Right.
So, I mean, Karen has
Right.
more detail on that.
All right, why don't we do this why don't we do this in order here? Why don't we start with the presentation of the goals, and I want to start with Goal 1, student achievement, and then we'll talk about Goal 2. When we talk about Goal 2, we can bring this into it. All right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. Let me, just for those people that are listening, the district goals provide a broad framework for the work that we do in district in a culture that we're continuously trying to be improving what the experience of our students are in our schools. The reason why we're on this time frame is that when we've worked with the AEA on this, what we want to have is a clear understanding. Teachers want to have a clear understanding. Administrators want to have a clear understanding. What is the scope of the work that we're going to do next year? Because that really informs what their goals are going to be for their school improvement plans, as well as teachers for the planning for the future of next year. And we are at a point in our school district where we really have really deepening work that we're doing that is not a kind of work that you just quickly say, we'll do, check, here's a goal for this year, we accomplished that. Because the work that we're really undertaking is much more significant than I would even say some of the goals have been in past years. And in fact, the two of the goals that we have here, really sort of a rewording about what is the nature of the work that we are doing currently and will continue to do with a lot more attention and focus next year. And the first one is looking at and you've already heard presentations this year, what are the kinds of skills and dispositions and content that we want our students to have to be really agents in their own lives as we go into this century. All of our students are going to be facing a probably very different kinds of future than probably all of us did. And I was mentioning an author tonight at the dinner that we were attending, Thomas Friedman, who has talked about the acceleration of change that is going on in our society today. In fact, he even wrote an article today, an op-ed in the New York Times, on the same idea of the kinds of skills our students need. Certainly we have cognitive skills that are essential. There are standards of learning that we have embraced in our curriculum, and those are important because they become the foundations cognitively for a lot of other work they do. But there are also dispositions that are important. And those include empathy, compassion, being able to take another kind of perspective of another human being. Another one is student agency. And this is becoming more increasingly important. In fact, one of the things that was a study that was done recently, which was cited in this article I was talking about, is the belief that students can make a difference in their own lives and take the initiative to do it, and have a certain level of choice and follow through with that. They did a study of students that had taken the PSAT, and you get results from that, and we've talked about using the PSAT in our school for this very reason. And what was the difference between the students who really improved on SATs from those that did not? And the students that had taken their PSAT results and had identified areas of learning they needed to master, using the Khan Institute as a resource, improved, in 20 hours of practice, improved their scores on the SAT by over 100 points, more than the students who did nothing. And so it was looking at the level of agency and like determination and taking charge of what they need to do in order to improve. I was at this conference the other day, and one of the things that, looking at the kids that are in college today, most of them on average will change jobs 7 times during their lifetime. But the part that was, we've heard that one before, but the part that's really interesting is that 5 of those jobs probably are jobs that do not exist today. And so how do we prepare them for a future that is not as certain in terms of pathways? And there's a lot of skills that we need to inculcate in our curriculum and the pedagogy of our classrooms, so that our students develop to be these the kind of learners that are going to always be learners. In the way the world is going, if you do not continue to be a learner in your life, you're going to have a very difficult time having the standard of living and the kinds of jobs that are going to provide the level of income that you would need. So we are embarking on this. We've been working on this, but we were having one of our last meetings, Dr. Chesson talked about the work developing we've been doing a lot of this work, and as you know, we're involved in the MAPLE Consortium. I've also been invited to work with another group from DESE in June on what we're doing about personalized learning, which is all of what I'm talking about in terms of the kind of focus we need for students. So, but when we sat back and looked at it this year, we said, you know what, we really need to have a clear vision of what we see as a student as learner and student as global citizen. And the curriculum leaders have begun that work. We need to get input from principals. We'd love to have input from parents. And eventually, I would like to see you as a group next year approve it. I think this is something that, it's not just something that we do in the school department. You're very much a part of it, and I think, and given your positions, that would be an important step. Sort of simultaneous to that work, we're looking at what are the transferable skills, how can we have more interdisciplinary work, what kind of project work can we do that increases student agency, or have students show what they know in different modalities. So that all of that work will be continuing. And so one of the things I decided that I thought might be a better way of looking at the goals for next year is that one of the questions that always comes up is, well, how do we know these goals are very broad. They're not specific like some of the ones later in the document says, we want to open Thompson's 6 classrooms in the fall. I mean, those are very concrete kinds of things. They're not as, these are very broad, very deep kind of goals. So what kind of evidence of success would you have? And that's what started to do here, and this is something we can talk about in subcommittees as well, as to what they might be. Can you put that up, Karen?
Just hit the space bar. I just went to sleep.
So, for example, for the evidence of success on this particular goal, we do want to finalize a vision that everyone feels represents what we're about as the Arlington Public Schools. And so that is one thing, and be very concrete. But we also want to have the alignment of power standards by discipline and the identification of what those transferable skills are. And we'll be taking an inventory of personalized educational experiences. And then we'll look at curriculum material. So these are things that you would expect to see next year. Now, the next stage of this, once we decide that, you know, we go through this process and these are going to be our district goals, we will be developing a chart with action plans, because some of these have many different parts to them that you can see, but it's not, you're not really approving the actions as much as they're informing you what we're doing, but rather the direction that we're moving. So that's the real big goal of goal 1. And for people who are, one thing I realized when I was getting comments back from some people, I don't think people realize that the 4 overarching goals sort of encapsulate the vision of the school committee, the district, in terms of these are the big areas we always want to focus on. Because I had some people start doing wordsmithing on the overarching goals. But
Their policy.
their policy, exactly, their policy right now. But each year, we look at where we are in the district, we do our own reflections, and say, well, what is the work? What is the work that we need to do to have a continuously improving what we're doing as a school district? So, and then the second one in goal 1, maybe we should stop after goal 1,
yeah,
and then before going to the other ones.
Yep.
The other one is again a repeat from this year because the timelines was just off in terms of the high school. The high school has to produce for the feasibility study a report on its educational vision and programs. And that has to be part of the documentation that we submit to MSBA as part of the feasibility study.
All right, now,
Just real quick on that particular thing. Is that a standard form that they have to go through for MSBA?
Well, they give you sort of a template.
Is it possible just to send us a copy of one that's already done by MSBA so we
Right
get
on
an
the
idea?
website.
Thank you.
All of them are on the
Thank
website. You can
Great.
see lots of them.
Thank you.
all right, questions on goal 1? Dr. Seuss.
Do you want to go in order?
I'll go in order. Dr.
Right.
Carden.
No, Dr. Clark.
You got a Juris Doctor, right?
That's true, yeah.
Oh, we're all going there?
I don't consider myself that. So I guess I'm just stumbling over the wording a little bit. So, so I think what you're saying you want to do is you want to develop the vision, and you also want to develop these lists. How these lists will be connected to the vision, I'm still not sure.
All right,
So based on the vision, you have to determine what the power standards, what are the most important standards in each discipline that will lead students to that vision? So where that connection is to the state standards and the state frameworks. You then have to also.
So for each power standard, for example, will there be an explanation of how it connects to the vision, or is that just going to be assumed that this standard is clearly related to the vision?
It will be done by each department, so that department, whatever that department feels like it needs to specify in order to make that connection.
Okay.
Some of the connections will be more obvious than others, yeah? And then if a student masters that standard, what are the key transferable that set of standards, what are the key transferable skills that might come out of that? And the inventory of personalized educational experiences, that we want to make sure that in order to be able to demonstrate that they've met these standards and that they've acquired these key transferable skills, that students have experiences to lead them to that are personalized, and that's something that the district really wants to focus on. And I want to call your attention to the last bullet point there. that we will be looking at each set of curriculum materials, that core set of curriculum materials, because teachers have some materials that they must use, and then there are other materials that they can add to it. But looking at that core curriculum, set of curriculum materials, to make sure that it's based on the basis of inclusivity, so that we are using as much inclusiveness as possible as we select our curriculum materials, both for those voices that are represented, but also access to the curriculum based on the students. Does that help?
Yeah. So my comment is, just to be more clearly state that these are lists that are going to be developed to be in alignment with the vision. It sounds like we have these lists and we're going to realign everything, but these are actually new lists.
Yes, that's correct.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Seuss.
So unsurprisingly, the thing that jumped out at me is vision of students as learners and global citizens will be approved by all stakeholders. And I'm sorry, I printed this out.
No.
Okay, by the school committee. Okay, so what I'm though interested in is a little bit better understanding of the process, and if we are doing stakeholder engagement in terms of, reaching out to the Vision 2020 Educational Task Force, for example, that process be spelled out, maybe not here, but maybe a reference to Goal 4, which is pretty sketchy right now, talking about what type of stakeholder engagement we're going to be involved in terms of, it seems like the vision for the high school is a perfect place where not just administrators are doing that, but teachers are involved in that, parents are involved in that, community members are involved in that. And I just would like to see sort of a more detailed spelling out of what the process is going to look like of that stakeholder engagement.
Right, and so there'll be a separate document, and we've done these kind of documents before. There's sort of a chart where you have the particular goal, and you specify what the different actions will be, who's responsible, timelines, and again.
But I just think that this needs to be in our goals, in the fourth goal, which is again really sketchy right now, that we need to really spell out that this is that we are going to have this kind of stakeholder engagement. A little bit of detail, it doesn't have to be exact, but something to hold our hat on, to say this is what we're planning to do for the next year, should be in this document.
Yes, but it's when it gets in the document. Right now, we're at where are we going with different efforts next year? Because we all have sort of a limitation, and we need to be able to provide this to school improvement plans. What will happen between now and September is exactly what you're asking for.
Well, again, since you have very little on Goal 4, which is always a problem, that seems to be the goal that's forgotten about. It seems like that's a perfect place to put. It can be a paragraph. It doesn't have to. We're not talking about spelling out in great detail. We're just talking about some idea that we will be engaging in stakeholder engagement. And I don't just mean parents and community members, but teachers. Every stakeholder who's involved in the process. I think that needs to be in here. I think it doesn't have to be in detail. It just should be in here.
You're just saying provide. So you want like a number 2 in Goal 4.
You can have a reference to Goal 4. Again, Goal 4 is the one that there's always one sentence. There's one sentence now. This is something that's always forgotten, and it seems like we have these perfect things where we are going to go out to stakeholders at all levels. Let's put that in our goals.
So like provide stakeholders the opportunity to participate in the execution of Goal 1.
Yeah, you don't have to
like
say there's going to be 3 meetings. You just have to say this is in our goals, that we're going to do that. Yeah.
That's fine. By the way, remember I sent you the first draft. There has been some edits that have gone on.
So
in the last
I
couple
printed
days.
this out last night.
What's in Novus reflects some of the edits that have gone on.
I gave you a blue copy.
Okay, no, I printed out the version that we had last night, and that's when I read.
So
Okay.
we got that. Anything else? Okay. Cindy, Ms. Starks, you want to be a doctor?
No, I don't want to be a doctor.
Do you have any questions?
Do I have any questions?
On Goal 1?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time, I guess. Student achievement, to me, should be about student achievement and not about the high school. So, again, I feel like this goal should be about student achievement? Where is, like, what are we focusing on as far as student achievement? I see that here, power standards, all of those things, but I'm not sure why I was also confused as to why the MSBA stuff was.
Well, I think it's a good question. The question is, where should it go? Ultimately, what is at the heart of this work that they're going to do, it is about student achievement. And it's a time of reflection. They've already done some of it, and they've been talking about it, but next year is when they really have to put it into a document. And, I'm not sure, it's not a professional development goal. It's not really a stakeholder goal, other than the fact that we will be, part of that will involve parents as well, because we will have focus groups for that. I mean, if you want to move it to a different, overarching, but at the heart, what motivates it is like, what can we do in our programs, in our vision for the school that affects student achievement?
Right, and the other question I had is, why is the stuff about the Gibbs curriculum not on here?
Well,
because I feel like that also is talking about student achievement, and that is something that I know we have to finish and have ready this year for the Gibbs opening. So I would maybe also add on here more about how we're going to change or improve student achievement by opening the 6th grade academy, and whatever that curriculum is, that might work well here in this goal too.
I put it in the Gibbs goal in 3, but yeah, we could bring that, we could highlight that too, sure.
Complete the curriculum plan for the Gibbs School. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
All right, anything else? Okay.
That's it for me.
Mr. Schlickman.
Yeah, I can understand the question of why the feasibility study is in here, because, the educational vision and programs do sort of relate to 1, but I think that it really fits into 3 as well, because it ties, it's more about what the school is going to be like and what our goals for the building are, rather than what we're going to be teaching next year. So that, my thought is that would be a better thing to throw over to 3.
Sure.
But and the Gibbs is a little more immediate in terms of curriculum planning. I think a really great goal is to come with an ed product for what the Gibbs is going to look like under number 1.
Okay. Mr. Hayner.
Under the bullet points that you have in number 1, will you be presenting that to us in a report or a presentation here to us in the community? Have you thought about
a combination of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Allison.
Okay, so a couple things. First, I don't know if people noticed, but I actually had 2 of them. One is the older one, and one is the
Actually, I don't have any
newer
of these.
one. And
You
so
don't
you
have
should,
any?
they look the same.
Oh, I don't know.
So the
You know,
newer.
I never know what the etiquette is. It's like the fork thing. Is it on my left?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
my right?
Actually, I don't think I have
Which one I'm
the, I
supposed
don't
to
have
think?
this one.
Anyway, you
have
can
it.
sort that out. The newer one, it looks like the bottom paragraph starts with completion of the high school educational vision.
I would say it on
Program
mine.
report, yeah.
So I'm confused about what we will get with the things under the following will be aligned with the vision. What are we going to receive, and then eventually when are we going to receive it? Or what are we going to see, or is it a presentation, is it a report? I just don't understand.
Well, I think one way we could do talking about the power standards in each discipline, as we've done this year, we've had curriculum leaders come in and talk about the work they're doing. You've certainly had social studies in ELA talking about the transferable skills they're trying to identify and incorporate an interdisciplinary approach. I think that's one way to do it, is to have the curriculum leaders again next year come in, but having that be the focus. And you have a presentation, and of course then they'll give you some written documentation as well.
Yeah, I think what I'd want to be sure is that we're hearing, to me, what you're trying to do is make a big picture. And if we get bits of the big picture at different meetings over a broad period of time, I think it's going to be hard for me at least.
Me too.
To get that whole picture put together. And I think part of what we're trying to do is distill it down to something that we can communicate to people. And I think having it presented to us in that form would be.
Just maybe have a meeting that is just simply everybody here and having everything put together in one document and then have them talk about it.
Yeah.
You can do that.
So I didn't quite understand about the feasibility study. I think it makes sense to have it under achievement because I think it's more important, the educational vision and refining it in the programs. And to me, that does relate directly to achievement. For the Gibbs, I agree we need to get the curriculum plan. I'm questioning whether the Gibbs is actually trying to increase achievement, or are we trying to improve education by increasing personalization, decreasing stress, increasing hands-on learning, which I'm not sure at the end of the day if I care if our numbers, our MCAS scores go up or down. I just want the 6th grade, the middle school, the start of middle school to be a much better experience for the 6th graders who are going through it. So I'm not totally sure it fits under this because we're talking about increasing achievement, but.
The thing about number goal, even though it's called student achievement, if you read what is in the body of it, they're looking at as enter a complete, what the end product is, you want them to be active citizen in an ever-changing world by offering a rigorous, comprehensive, standards-based, data-driven K-12 system of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So it's a very broad goal, and the work that on the Gibbs planning is really to be focusing on all the same things you were talking about.
So maybe I should be thinking in my head, it really should be student achievement and experience, or something. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to change that, but that's kind of what we're talking about.
We're trying to create the experiences in their educational experiences that they are going to be college and career ready. They are going to be able to have a life that's a quality life in terms of supporting themselves, for one thing. But what are all the things that we need to do in that effort? And we're doing a lot. I mean, one of the things I was going to put in the superintendent's report is that, Mr. Thilman mentioned it at town meeting is, the rankings. And now, you always wonder, you talk about the rankings, it could go up, could go down, but the fact of the matter is the rankings of the high school keep going up. And U.S. News and World Report reported a ranking of 12 in the state. And now it's just slightly over 1% in the whole nation. But the metric is, what are you doing to help all of your students, not some of your students, all of your students, achieve these kinds of goals of being college and career ready? And they have metrics that they look at, and we are doing it. But what we're trying to do in this goal, besides improve what we're doing, is also to be able to have documentation that explains it too. Because I don't think we have that really.
Right.
We really don't, and that's what we need to have.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so my comments are, I see three clear things. The vision of the high school, because it's part of the MSBA requirements, and I'm perfectly comfortable having it in there. And then the third thing is, a general plan for the Gibbs School, academic and student life plan for the Gibbs School, which I think the school committee needs to hear. I think it's real important the school committee hears that. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of public input on that, and by the time it gets to us, we should have a healthy conversation about it, because it's going to be, it's a new school.
I would just add to that the mechanics of the day. In other words, it isn't going to be just a cookie cutter stamp down there. You got to deal with the issues of Metco, the busing aspects of it, and things of that nature too, to go along with what,
Well, yeah, I mean,
what Jeff had just said. Just as part of that discussion.
The mechanics of the school day, you mean,
Right,
the schedule and
exactly.
all that. Well, I mean, I guess as much as can be presented to us
Yes.
in a reasonable time.
Yes, I agree.
Because you can't get everything worked out before the first day
Absolutely.
of school.
Just some of the bugs that,
Yeah. But, okay, so.
anyway.
Anyway, so that's what I see. I would also say this is to what extent are you involving frontline teachers in the selection of the power standards, the identification of the transferable skills? Because how much PD time is this going to take? I'm curious. So it's a big project if you do this
It's a big
right.
project, and it's already, as they said, starting. It's at the department level, so
right.
there's going to be department meetings. Teachers are going to be involved in those. At the elementary level, there's there's certainly the school level, there's the curriculum level, because they meet as around specific curriculums. That is the kind of things that we have to flesh out in all the action plans, exactly what are all the different things that are going to lead to these final products.
Okay.
And, this is the kind of work that, that level of detail cannot be done in May when we're
Yeah.
in May.
Yeah, I
I'm
just.
saying, that's a summer project, but what we have to get done is like, what are the real drivers for next year?
Okay, because I mean, there's a lot, there's the district vision, there's the high school vision statement, and there's the new curriculum for the GIBS, so it's a lot going on for teachers. And I just want to make sure that, there's a realistic plan for it. Okay, all right.
I'm not saying there's not.
All right,
There's a lot.
so now, goal 2. So I'm sorry I wasn't here. Kathy and I were at the Ostergen Awards dinner honoring our student athletes. And so I appreciate the information you all brought and the public participation. So tonight, I said, it looked like 6 members or 5 members of the group participated and had something to say. So we appreciate that. And now we'll talk about Goal 2. Dr. Bodie will get a chance to talk about Goal 2, then we'll go around again. Go ahead.
Well, some context for Goal 2. You've heard this year many times about the grant that we sought last year that was offered by Department of Education, Safe and Supportive Grant. And we applied for that in any kind of grant, you have to be very clear about what you're going to do. And I don't think one fact that we haven't really told you is that Arlington got more money than any other town in the state. And it was because, I think, of the clarity of the work that we were doing, and the people, it was a team effort in writing the grant. So at any rate, it's a planning grant, and that's what's we've been engaged in last summer, throughout this year, and each school is developing action plans that we've talked about that we'll see in June. But it was only a planning grant. So then the school district went out, and I didn't have a chance to say it when Amy Spears was here. We looked to AEF if they would be able to plan, give us money for an implementation grant, which they have done. And so what will happen is that a particular school is going to have an action plan, and we will be helping, the grant from AEF will help fund what those actions are. The one thing that we do know that we want to have in every single school is cultural proficiency, professional learning opportunities. They're going to look potentially different. In fact, I already know what 2 schools are now, and they're different, but they are still, in fact, Addison has been engaging in that and will continue to engage in it. It's meeting what the needs are of that school district. So the goal is the goal is a very broad goal, but what I wanted to show you is what are the kinds of things that you're going to see as evidence of success. Because when you talk about something about social emotional learning, cultural proficiency, all of those can mean different things to different people. And so, that's the reason why I decided that maybe this is a different way of doing it this year and putting the actual evidence of success. Now, we actually put this we published this eventually. That's a question we can talk about in subcommittees, whether we want to actually have that. the evidence there or not, but for our purposes, I wanted you to see it. So there are a number of things related to the Safe and Supportive Grant and the work we're doing, supported by AEF, which has to do with the district-wide committee, because we eventually want to have a commonality, a common approach, common language that we're moving forward with. But one thing that was also, this year we talked about was consistent SST practices at each school. We have SST, students, these are teams of people that meet at school to look at issues for students in terms of levels of support that they might need. But we need to have something more uniform. But one of the things that, because we're talking about the mention tonight about cultural proficiency, one of the things that you will see is next year is reports on what were the efforts around professional learning for teachers and administrators in the topic of cultural proficiency. So you will have that. But also it's important is we have to think about what is our ongoing plan. These things are not one-off. This kind of work is something that is just embedded in the culture of a school district, and you have to put in structures to make sure that it happens, particularly for the new people that are hired in years out. And so we want to make sure that we attend to that, which is why we're going to look at what this is going to look like in our induction program. So these are the things that we will be looking for. So the goal is broad, and it has to be broad in terms of what we're doing with our grants. And but what it looks like in terms of what are some of the things that you will see happen next year, it's in the evidence of success. All right. I don't know if, Laura, you want to add anything to that?
No, I just think that each school, depending on the input it gets from their process, will be selecting training that's appropriate for that school. And that doesn't mean that they get to go all over the place, and you know, it needs to make sense based on their data. But what's very critical about the Safe and Supportive Schools process is the teachers feel like they had an opportunity to assess their school and to have input on what the professional development program that they feel is most appropriate for their school. Without that sort of buy-in, it really doesn't make any difference. And I also must echo what Dr. Bodie said about people that come on board, because we're going to do this training now, but we need to make sure that next year and the year after and the year after that, that there's a consistent plan to happen for those people that come on board.
Okay, so I'm going to disagree and say that I still think we need to provide cultural proficiency training for all teachers next year, and that should be separate from the SST initiative, Safe and Supportive Schools initiative. You know, that was the plan last year, and I understand that this other thing is going on, but I don't think we should lose focus from that. It's something that long overdue for the district. There were some events this year that caused some ruffles in the community, and I do think that we need to make that effort. As far as this particular goal, I think when we have a very amorphous goal like this, the evidence of success actually becomes the items of the subparts of the goal. So in this case, we definitely need to keep that in. I don't know if we want to call it evidence of success, or those items are just subparts of the goal. I actually like that list of items better than the narrative up top, but that's my take on that.
So first I want to say that I'm glad to see that you are recognizing that this is an ongoing process, and certainly, I mean, one of the things that happens with big initiatives is that sometimes the new people don't hear, aren't part of that process and sort of miss out, and so it's great that that's part of this. I do think that it was the intent of the school committee last year that cultural competency training would be continue to be rolled out. I don't think I think it's asking too much to ask that all teachers get trained by next year. I think our intention was that this was potentially a multi-year process, that we were starting with administrators, and that it would take 2 to 3 years to train teachers. But I do think it was the intent of the school committee last year.
Literally spells out that all teachers will be trained.
Okay, so I remember, in conversations, I remember the acknowledgement that given how many teachers, that it might be a 2 to 3 year process. So I guess that's to be determined, but you're right, it's in what we said. It was the intent of the school committee that this would not be sort of lost in, and I understand that many of the same goals are in the safe and supportive schools work, but it's not quite the same thing.
Can I ask you why it's not the same thing?
Well, what I understand is that the safe and supportive schools is very broad, that there's lots of things that it's touching on, lots of really valuable things that I'm really glad this district is doing, because I really think it's a need of the district. But cultural competency training is very specific, and I could see a session that waves its hands at some of the same issues, or even gets into great detail. It's really unclear. But if you specify that we want cultural competency training, then we are being specific, right? We're ensuring that it doesn't get lost.
And it's very specific in terms of what is the evidence of success here, in terms of, I don't know how it can much be clear. It's report on the cultural proficiency, professional learning for teachers and administrators. So you're going to hear what the work has been, and it's going to be a little different in each school. And in fact, I think that's actually a very good idea, because as we look at sustainability of this, I'd like to see what kind of program or what might be a better thing for us to do more universally. I know specifically what one school is going to do, and it's going to they've committed to pretty much giving up all their professional development time for that purpose. So that's something that we want to look at very carefully and see, if that's the direction we want to go, or we want to have something that be required for new teachers to do outside the school hours in future years. Those are the kinds of things we want to take a look at. Some school districts have done that. They've had, like when you're in year 2, you take a certain kind of training, and it's mandatory. It's paid for by the district to do it. I don't think we have a specific plan yet in that regard, and that's what we hope that will emerge from next year.
Right. So from what I understand, we were supposed to develop a plan this year. So that was sort of one of our goals, is to develop that plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So my thought is that the problem is that there's no, and again, I'm not really sure. This is always the problem with the goals, is where is the specific plan? Is that part of the goal? Because the problem is that we said last year we were going to do this, or at least we were going to have a plan. And I admit, it's true. There's a lot of different ways to do it. It's fine that every school wants to do it differently, but we want to see the plan. I want the plan for how it's going to be done, how each and every individual teacher is going to do it. Again, I don't know if it's part of the goal, but it certainly could be evidence of the goal will be the plan of how we're going to do this, right? We didn't get a plan last year, but we need some kind of a plan, I think, is all we're looking for, right? So Dallon's going to do this, and Hardy's going to do this, and Ottoson is going to do this, and that's how this cultural proficiency, and it's true, some of it might be covered in some of these things. We don't know what all of them are, but somebody needs to draw all those lines for us and just give us what the plan is, and then that'll be fine.
That's what's coming in June.
Okay.
We're going to have the plans. That was the planning grant. And we've been working on the self-assessment at each school, and every school is going to have that, and you're going to have copies of it. So you are going to have a plan, and it will be this year.
Mr. Schlickman.
Yeah, it's difficult because the goal for 16-17 said, provide administrators with cultural proficiency, professional development during the 16-17 school year. And we can see whether that happened or not, and plan for similar professional development for teachers during 17-18. So that during this year, we're planning for teachers to start with similar professional development next year. Now, granted, it doesn't have to be done all at once, and we're not, and different schools and different people may have different needs based on their backgrounds. But I think that what we need to have is some sort of a desired outcome, that as a result of this professional development training for the administrators, this is these are some of the core things about our administrators that we have that we didn't have starting out. So, it's like a course objective. And so essentially we need to have the same thing. Why are we doing cultural proficiency, professional development? Because we want our teachers to be able to respond appropriately to all of our students. Because we want them to be able to understand and read the cultures that they're walking through on a day-to-day basis and interacting with the kids. Mm-hmm. How do we know we got there? So, what this plan that we've asked for in the 16-17 year should really map out what are the characteristics, traits, and abilities of Arlington teachers that we expect from them in terms of being competent, culturally competent in terms of dealing with each other and with our students and with our families. And then what are we going to do across the teaching staff in order to ensure that all teachers meet that high standard we're setting. And obviously we're doing professional development, not because the teachers are shortcoming, but they need support and training and different perspectives. So what's our goal with our teachers? What do we want them to be able to do? Let's see the plan that outlines what the end goal is and how we're going to start implementing next year. Because then at that point, we can go and turn to our families and the folks who have asked us to do this and say, see, we've recognized the need, and within the context of all the good things we're doing, this is how we're achieving those goals.
Mr. Hayner? I'm going to do something rare. I'm going to agree with all my fellow members in public. Whoops. I'm not going to repeat any of that. I agree with it 100%, but I would like to get a little specific on the bullet points. On the first one, the creation of the safe and supported schools. Is the grant money paying for that? Is that what you're planning? For the district-wide committee, setting it up and doing the program during the summer, the grant money?
I don't know how much money we have left for some of that. It's a
The reason I'm asking is the high school did not apply for the grant. And as I mentioned in the last meeting, and you were going to find out about funding that piece of it, and I'm concerned, that's all on that.
The Arlington Educational Foundation is fully expecting that when we complete the work of the planning committees,
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to be in June, and we take those plans, which based on what we know and the updates that we've gotten and the planning meetings that I've attended, that grant, that when we go to the Arlington Educational Foundation, can include the high school. So while the state ones only.
No, I'm talking about the AEF grants that.
No, that's not what's paying for these committees. Right now, we have a state grant that is paying for these planning
Is that the one the high
committees.
school did not apply for?
That's correct.
Thank you.
But
Okay.
the work from these committees when we apply to AEF, can include the high school.
Fine.
The reason why the high school did not was a decision had to be made at the time they thought that they were going to be deep into the feasibility study plan. And it was just not enough time to do everything.
I appreciate the need for feasibility, but we have to continue with our education programs at the same time, and that becomes a very hard thing. Easy for me to say, hard to implement, I understand. Going down to the third one, will you be sharing the documentation, the practices, procedures, and documentation across the district? Once that's done, sharing that?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Going down to the next one, it talks about a practice endorsement. Is that a DESE certification? On that third one.
the mental health, first aid, and trauma sensitivity practice endorsement. I see the word endorsement.
Yeah, it's not from the Department of Education, it's from a different organization within the state.
Okay, fine.
PTA, I think. Not
And
PTA.
the report on cultural proficiency, professional learning, and teachers administration, when do you believe the report will be available? Late fall, or?
The plan for,
Or you,
for a
maybe
new
you just
teacher
mentioned that
induction program?
You just mentioned that a minute ago, in the
Well,
fall?
We'd want to be able to probably get it done by next spring, because we've already begun planning and laying out all of the.
I'm not talking about the induction program. I'm
Oh.
talking the one just prior to that.
Oh,
On the
that
cultural proficiency and learning.
Well, you can hear about the administrator one, which are going to be involved this summer. We've done
okay.
2 different trainings for
I
administrators.
thought part of what you were planning on doing before all the discussion a minute ago was to be looking at the emotional component and developing a plan for the teachers and the students going forward. That's the one I'm talking about.
Well, I thought you were talking about the report on cultural proficiency, professional learning. Is that the one you're talking about?
Right, for teachers and administrators.
Right.
Okay. So
Right.
you're talking about having that in the spring. Fine. I'm just getting an idea when. And the last one, on the induction for the new teachers, is it fair to say that this will be an in-depth program, not just part of a 1 or 2 day orientation?
Well, I think that's something that we have to talk about, is what would be as part of the induction program, and whether we want to do something where it becomes something that would be extra beyond the school day for teachers in their 2nd or 3rd year. I mean, those are things we
Right.
have to talk about.
Right.
And in fact, that'll be part of negotiations
Well,
possibly.
I think it's important, as a former teacher, to understand that, and you do it too, that this can't be just on the first couple of days to get my foot in the door. It has to be ongoing and practicing.
Well,
And you
that's-
understand that.
I do understand
Thank
that,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Yassine?
Okay. First, what does SST mean?
Student support team?
Yeah, the student support teams.
Okay.
It's usually a group that meets once a week with students that have learning issues or behavior issues are brought to this group every week, and they plan out different interventions, and then they go back, do it, and come back.
So we should
that kind of
spell that out.
process.
We should spell
Right.
I can do that.
So I agree with Mr. Carden that we need to leave the bullet points, that they're an important part of the goal, no matter who we're communicating it to. And I'm happy with most of the bullet points. Going down to the report on cultural proficiency, I think part of the tension that's coming up here is that when I hear report on, that does not mean to me that everyone did attend cultural proficiency. The report, I mean, if you talk about report on professional learning for teachers, that can just say, well, we're going to do one session, one time, and that's our plan. And for the administrators, we're going to do a different session, a different time. But no teachers have to have actually attended it or will attend it or anything. And I think the intent of our goal this year was that teachers would attend professional development on cultural proficiency. And that's where I think we're having problems, because to me, I don't see anything here that spells out that teachers are actually going to attend it. I'm not saying they all have to attend exactly the same thing. I think some of my colleagues did think so, but I'm not saying that here. I'm saying that we just want to know that all teachers are actually going to attend it. I mean, you know, that's happening, what it is, and that they're going to attend it. That was what our goal had intended for this coming year. That's all my points.
So we're going to be waiving the 10 o'clock rule. I think everyone knows that, right?
It's my fault.
That's okay. We're going to get this report on the cultural proficiency, professional development. We're going to get this report, you said, in June?
Not necessarily. With the administrator one, you can hear what the.
I thought you said we're going to get a report in June. What are we getting in June?
All right. Oh, this coming June. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about next June.
A week
This June, every school, schools have been involved in a self-assessment process.
They are going to develop action plans for their school for next year.
Okay.
Those action plans is what you will see this June.
June 8th, that's our only meeting in June right now.
I don't know if you'll have them in June, but you'll have them in June 8th, but you'll have them in June.
Can we get them June 8th?
I can't say that, I would suggest have another meeting then.
I know, well, this is what I want to talk about with the group, because part of the issue is we don't have a full picture of what happened this year, because we haven't received a report from the professional staff. You see, I think this would be helped, personally, I would be helped by hearing from principals who actually delivered this. Because I'm very fearful of a mandate from a board without a conversation with the people actually doing the delivery of the work. I tried that when I was a younger administrator, like mandating, and it didn't work. It was the funniest thing. So I learned I had to kind of bring everybody into or go to them or bring them into my office and figure out what our plan was. So I would really want to bring the people in the room here who deliver this to figure out what's going on.
I support that, but part of the process that I understand is Dr. Bodie met with the administrators all last year to develop this plan for the year. So they should be, it wasn't just mandated going down, and.
I didn't say that. I said I want to hear them. I want to get.
Okay, fine.
That's what I want. So I want to see if we can if we can't get them June 8th, then we got to find another meeting.
I'm not saying you can't have the principals June 8th. I can ask them if they can come, and they can talk about the process in their school and what they expect where they're going with it.
All right.
Since we have a teacher here at the middle school, maybe you could put you on the spot a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about how the process has been going at Addison?
We've actually been doing some of the trainings this year. So we've had a couple of days on gender identity issues and sensitivity, and those have been received very positively. And we had some work on our professional day in November as well. Mm-hmm. So I think the teachers appreciate it. It's stuff that we're always looking to be better on. Mm-hmm. My one concern with this is I'm looking at this and I'm literally counting meeting days on the calendar, and I'm thinking, okay, middle school and high school teachers are essentially designing new schools next year, whether it's for the feasibility study or for the new Addison or for the new Gibbs, and doing cultural sensitivity training and keeping our own buildings running and having faculty meetings and department meetings. Oh God, when is that all going to happen? I don't think we have the days. So I love these goals. I think they're the perfect direction, but please keep in mind, you guys talk about unfunded mandates all the time. Our version of that is, we don't have time to do everything you want us to do.
Very well said. That's a good thing to take into account. That's why I personally want to hear from, I want to hear from people that administer the buildings before we take an action and issue our own unfunded mandate in terms of time. I think it's irresponsible.
And the very important thing to note about that is that Juliana works at the middle school and at the high school. At the elementary school, they have early release day every Tuesday. So they have much more time in terms of doing this kind of work. So I think you need to be even more sensitive to the middle school and the high school and the work that they have to do in the very limited time. They basically have one early release day a month to do all the things that she just discussed.
Yeah, so I think the most productive conversation about all this is going to be with the principals, personally. The school committee should be talking to the principals, or some of them, don't have to be all of them.
Do you want the principals at a subcommittee meeting, or do you want them at the school committee meeting? What is your vision on that?
I don't know, I got to think about it, but is that all right? I don't know, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Whatever we got to look at their schedules, look at the schedule coming up. It could be at a subcommittee meeting, that might be effective too, depending on the time. I don't want to come in at night.
That's one of the issues.
Yeah. All right, so all right, so let's think about whether it's at the subcommittee or whether it's Paul's committee or we bring her the full committee. All right?
Goal 3?
Very good. We're going to try to do goal 3 and 4. I don't know if we need to take go ahead.
These are very concrete, very specific things that are going to happen, and they're in here as goals because it's got to be acknowledged how much time this is taking. It may be very short sentences, but I can assure you the amount of time involved in this is extraordinary and has been, and it's the sheer number On the other hand, we need to do the sheer numbers, but meanwhile, it's making sure they're all moving forward in the timely way they need to move.
Any questions on goal 3 or goal 4? And we got a suggestion on goal 4 to add.
Real quick, aren't 1 and 2 prerogative of the Permanent Town Building Committee with just input from the school department? With regard to schematic and construction plans?
Yeah, the permanent town building does look over that, but I can assure you that
But I mean, all I'm saying is, it's their province with input from the school department. We don't deal with the schematic and construction, but we have input in that.
Yeah.
But they're the approving agent. That's all I'm saying.
you want different wording on this?
I'm just saying, number 3 belongs to us, number 1 and 2 doesn't,
I will tell you what
that's all.
John Cole has said all the years I've known him, which is, I'm not happy unless the superintendent's happy. No
I
matter
said
who's-
input, I said input.
So that's what his.
And right now, that only input there, this ought to scare you, is me.
Well, I think the superintendent's looking it over.
Good.
I'm sorry, goal 3, yeah, we'll go around.
We're going to go on goal 4.
Do you want to talk about goal 3 or goal 4?
3 and 4 together.
4, okay, go ahead.
Just to parallel, so we're adding, so we're taking the curriculum and operational plans for Gibbs from goal 3, item 2, and moving that to goal 1. And then to parallel with the MSBA feasibility study, we should also have stakeholders' opportunity for input into the Gibbs plan in goal 4. So there should be 2 items under goal 4, feasibility study for high school and Gibbs curriculum and operational plans.
Okay. That's what came up earlier, right? Okay.
So I sort of said my piece about this, which is, and also, I just want to emphasize also communication is an important part of this. I do think that this is a goal that sometimes in the busyness of running a school is sort of forgotten about, stakeholder engagement and communication. But I wanted to ask if we want to include something about a dashboard again, since we only sort of half did it this year. And, I know that community relations is potentially going to revisit this. I think that we might have a different look for the dashboard since what we were trying to do was so hard to accomplish. So maybe we want to have that as a goal again, to produce something, even if it's in a very different format than what we were trying to do, since it seemed too hard to do.
Well, Ms. Starks and I are trying to
I know
get some
there's been some
dates.
discussion.
We saw a great presentation on some software that would provide the kind of dashboard I think everybody was envisioning. And so we're going to have the person who is the rep, either remotely or in person, come and demonstrate it. I will say that it's not without cost. There's a $1,000 implementation, and then there's a $7,000 every year.
The amount of senior staff time that we've devoted to this also has a cost. I've always
No doubt about
emphasized that.
it. No, absolutely. The amount of time that
It's not
was
free.
used to do what was not particularly satisfying was
Yep.
a lot.
So
It
the
was
question
a-
is, should this be part of, it seems like this might be a good goal to have, and it may be an achievable goal to have this year.
So maybe you might want to send me some wording, how
Sure.
you might want to say it. Okay.
So dashboard 2.0, basically?
Dashboard 2.
It's actually called cleargov.com, and you can actually go out and see and take a look at it. and
Yeah,
tell us what-
actually, I've been emphasizing this all along, that we should look to potentially buy something because doing it for free was not really free.
We've never seen anything this cheap before. I
Okay.
mean, it's not without cost, but compared to the other costs we've seen, this is very good.
What's it called?
Cleargov.com.
Right, but it is dashboard.
Yes.
When we talked about an entirely different website, we're talking minimum 25,000. Not to mention all the time involved in doing that kind of switchover too. When the town did it, they had one person just almost exclusively doing that work.
Well, there's lots of ways to do it. We could have produced a paper copy too, or a PDF or something, but yeah.
Anything else on?
Just to move like you said, move that around.
Move,
Oh,
Second half of
10
goal,
o'clock.
goal 3, section 2, into the right.
it goes, you want it before,
Yeah, it goes to goal 1.
it goes to goal 1. Okay. All right, we have to move the 10 o'clock rule.
What do you want to move to?
I don't know.
10:30. It's good.
Okay, we'll try. Dr. Allison,
You're going to change it again.
Move to 10:20.
Move it.
No.
Second by Mr. Schlickman. All
We
those
have
in-
an executive session, too. Yeah.
That's
Well,
okay,
We
let's.
still got more. Let's
all
go.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Go.
The ayes have it. Okay, so I'm not sure we really have much of a choice when it comes to that. Okay. Can you,
Wait,
can
are
you?
we still taking input on these? I thought we were going around.
Yes, we are, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
all
Yep.
right. So I don't understand, goal 3 lists 3 things that we're building and not all the other things. Are we gonna list them all? I don't understand why these 3. What about Stratton? We gotta finish Stratton and open up Stratton. What about Hardy? We're gonna move forward with Hardy. We can either list them all, I mean, I don't know, it's a weird goal, because, I mean, none of them have any more priority than anything else, but I feel like, I don't know.
Well-
That was just my feedback on that, right? There's other schools in there. And goal 4,
Well, there's 3 of them there. You just want the 4th is the Stratton. That's the only one that's missing.
well, and there's nothing about the high school on there. Like, of all the schools, there's
Oh,
nothing about
because
the
it,
high
okay,
school on there.
it's in the earlier. Okay.
It's in the earlier one, we suggested we move it back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't unanimous on that.
So I just,
I mean,
I don't
we
even know,
didn't
I
all,
don't
but-
necessarily know how to fix it, but I'm just, and then on goal 4, again, are we trying to list where we are going out for stakeholder engagement? Because we also have all the hiring that we're doing, right? And we're gonna be using,
Oh.
hopefully, stakeholders for that, and, that's a great way to have stakeholder engagement.
Oh, you know what, there is a missing goal in number 4. I had it on it, and I think, I don't know how it got out of it. It was increasing the, we've been putting that goal the last couple of years, increasing the diversity of our staff.
Oh, yeah,
above
that
the. Yeah, I had that on. I
But
think it
that's
might have
not
been
goal
the only-
4, that
It's
should
in
not,
there.
that has nothing
That's
to
in
do
goal
with goal
2.
4, that's a
goal
goal 2.
That's in goal 2.
That's
That's-
more about goal 2.
Goal.
This is operations, communications, and stakeholder
Missing
engagement.
in goal 2 this time. It's on the draft one, but
Yeah.
not in the
Yeah,
later one.
Somehow it got erased. I don't know why, but I'll put that back in.
Okay,
Okay.
that was it, that's all the rest I had.
Mr. Schlickman?
I give up. No, I'm fine with 3 and 4 in the
Hayner?
conversation.
I go along with whatever everyone else says.
Dr.
I already said what I said.
Okay. Okay, now we're done with the goals. All right, so I think the next step with the goals is this. One is, step 1 is Dr. Bodie will make some edits to this, and based on all the input that she's received, and she and I will talk about when we can bring the principals in, what's the appropriate venue to have a discussion with them as it relates to goal 2, and professional development, and the element of professional development on cultural proficiency. The next step, step 3, is for Paul's committee to meet, to go through the goals and to work on the superintendent's.
All before 2 weeks from tonight.
Yes.
I mean, it's probably unrealistic, I mean, so.
We'll meet.
Can I suggest?
Yeah.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but up till you got to meet CIAA, I'm fine with that and bring it forward the next time. You've got a lot of input from the whole committee tonight on it like that.
Yeah.
And you two work it out. My feeling is let them work it out. And let CIAA deal with a meeting for superintendent's goals, gives a little more
Okay,
latitude.
so just, well,
That's
that
my
meeting has to
opinion.
take place too. That, you'd have to schedule that meeting anyway, because we've got to do that the first
But
meeting in June.
I'm just saying, gives a little more flexibility, not to
Okay.
squeeze it in 2 weeks.
All right, well.
That's a
if it's-
suggestion.
So we're trying to do everything we can by June 8th. All right, fair enough. Can you get your report down to like, keep it brief?
Yes,
You're next.
Very.
we can.
Pops was great.
Yes.
Congratulations to them. The last day of school, right now, is Friday, June 23rd.
As long as it doesn't snow.
No, that wouldn't matter.
Oh, that's right.
Doesn't
Well,
matter.
we
matter
haven't used
anymore.
all of our snow days yet.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said it. I apologize.
It's not even just snow, I mean, it could be other reasons, and so we still potentially could have a school or a district go beyond that, but I hope not.
Okay.
Came very close last week with the high school, but not having electricity. But I think we'll be okay for the last day, being that Friday. If all
Please.
goes well. Please, that's what we say too, please. Other things quickly.
Yeah, how come we didn't know
Parent-
about that?
What?
I've never heard anything about no electricity at the high school.
It was
First
on a
I've ever
weekend-
heard
It was
of it.
on a weekend. It was fine. It got cleared up by 6 o'clock. You were,
Got it.
ignorance is bliss.
Paul and I came in and fixed it.
Shocking.
We just got up, said, you know, I can fix it, you can fix it.
Yeah, that's
We didn't
why-
want to bother the rest of the committee.
That's why it broke.
Got it.
It just felt like,
Little duct tape and an extension cord were good.
yeah. Then we had coffee, it was great.
Very talented group here. I put out an invitation to the elementary parents, that we're having a meeting for them to meet Miss DeFrancisco, the new appointed principal at Gibbs, and it's going to be on May 18th at 7 o'clock at Bishop from 7 to 8:30. That's already out in email.
I'm just curious, why Bishop, not Hardy?
Centrality.
Thank you.
We thought about that.
Makes sense.
And the art reception, Dave Ardita already said, is the 25th. That's it.
Wow. That was very good.
Very good.
No building
Excellent job.
updates.
Excellent job. You always do a good job, that was excellent. Okay, consent agenda, all items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence. Approval of warrant number 17175, total warrant amount $240,426.56, dated 4/27/17. Approval of minutes, regular school committee meeting minutes, 4/27/2017. Approval of meeting, school choice public hearing, May 25th, 2017, at 6:30 PM. Approval of E. Nelson Blake Book Award, annual award given to the top 12 students with the highest GPA at Arlington High School. Approval of the Ida Robbins Scholarship for 2012 award to the top 2 students with the highest GPA. The recipients will not be aware of this award until the presentation at awards night. Motion by Ms. Stark, second by Dr. Seuss. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Implementation of the Foundation Budget Review Commission resolution.
I move that we adopt the resolution and dispatch it to appropriate.
And we've all seen it. Is there a second by Mr. Hayner? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Go- Yes, Dr. I'm sorry.
I wish it didn't have all the whereases and
Yeah,
everything in it.
It's written
because
terribly. Yes, I hate those.
You lose what,
But it's
what
their
it's about.
resolution, not ours.
Yeah. Okay, whatever.
Just written poorly.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, subcommittee liaison reports, budget, Dr. Kersey.
Nothing to report.
None,
Oh,
okay.
actually, we passed, at town meeting, we passed the,
Budget.
well, the budget, but
Yeah.
we also were given the okay to set up the special education reserve account. I think we actually need to take a vote where we all approve it. I'm not sure. I think we talked about it, but I don't think we actually took a vote. I'll prepare a vote and bring it next
Yeah,
time.
we should have something in writing for that.
Yeah, that's, I know.
Community relations?
We're still trying to have a meeting. How did the chat go?
Oh, chat went well. We had continuous traffic the whole time. We heard about a number of issues. I'll write up notes for our next meeting. You want to talk about anything?
No, I mean, some of the things were brought up tonight in some of my comments. So
Cool. Next one, last one is Jeff and I.
I give a
First-
conflict, so I mean, I can't do it.
First Saturday in June.
I know, it's graduation day here.
Oh.
I gotta be at this event for my work.
If you
So,
can't find somebody, I'll do it.
Okay. All right.
Just let me know.
I will.
yeah. Sorry, I can't do that, Cindy. District accountability, curriculum instruction assessment,
We're going to get together.
facilities,
Nothing.
policies and procedures,
also looking to get together.
great. School enrollment task force,
Not,
Hasn't
no
met.
report, legal services review.
nothing at this time.
Arlington High School Building Committee, we meet next on June
June something.
6th, I think it is. I think it's June 6th.
June 6th.
June something.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's the Rotary dinner,
June 6th is Rotary Dinner.
Well, we're going to be,
We got our
we're going to
meeting.
be late.
Well, I'm going to tell you, your chair won't be there. He's being honored.
The chair,
Are you the chair? I'm sorry, I thought Adam was the chair. I apologize.
no, I'm the chair.
Chair.
But, you know, I'm the chair.
I
So
apologize.
I'm not getting,
In your honor.
I'm not getting honored, believe me.
Next year, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Gibbs Committee, Ms. Starks?
They are meeting again Thursday, the 18th at 3 o'clock.
Okay. Warrant Committee,
Everybody got paid.
liaison reports. Yep.
Stratton PTO meeting last night, they announced a very successful online auction and asked me to thank everyone who made bids and all those who contributed, especially Valandry Contracting for their donation of a $20,000 bathroom renovation.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
That's very generous.
And they, I think the top bid was $16,000, so it was very successful online bidding, and thanks to Valandry Contracting, phenomenal.
That's great. Huge.
Thank you.
Any other announcements, future agenda items? We have the calendar, so if you think we're missing something, just email me, as Paul did, about the vote tonight.
Oh, I just have an announcement.
Yeah.
Oh, just about that, as well as the school committee chat and graduation, Porch Fest is going on June 3rd.
I know.
Yes.
And the Democratic State Convention.
And the Democratic. What is
Goody.
Porch Fest, which is, a bunch of musicians
Arlington Center
playing.
for the Arts.
Arlington Center for the Arts. A
Um,
lot of fun.
Yeah, okay. So,
You have an announcement. Julia?
oh, I'm sorry.
Very quick before
Julia.
we go, I just want to plug the March for Education on May 20th on Boston Common.
Okay.
Sponsored by MTA and a bunch of other people, that I think it's going to be a great event. If you can go and show your support for public schools, I think it would be fantastic. Members of AEA will be marching over from the MTA delegate annual meeting that's taking place earlier in the morning that day, so it'll be there.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, that's great, good job. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, now executive session, are we coming out for a vote?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Should be quick.
We, I also have to read it. So, motion to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with the union and/or non-union personnel, or contract negotiations with the union and/or non-union, in which, if held in an open meeting, may have a detrimental effect. To conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, in which, if held in an open meeting, may have a detrimental effect. Collective bargaining may also be conducted. School committee to approve traffic supervisor's MOA. Motion by Dr. Seuss, Dr. Allison Ampe, second by Dr. Seuss. Roll call, Mr. Carden.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Starks?
Yes.
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 Yes. 7 yeses. So we are now in executive session. Why don't you wait a minute, and then we'll have this discussion, and then come out and take a vote, get it all done by 10:20, per order of Dr. Kirstie Allison Ampe.
She said
Didn't
10:20.
we move faster?
You did a great job. You were right. We are resuming our regular meeting, and the only purpose we're meeting in open session right now is to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Arlington School Committee and the Arlington Traffic Supervisors, AFSCME Local 680, AFSCME 680.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Hayner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schlickman. We should do a roll call?
Mm-hmm.
We do a roll call. We don't necessarily have to do a roll call. We don't need a roll
No.
call. Yeah, we
Just
can
say
do,
aye.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Motion to adjourn.
The second motion was to direct me to sign
Oh,
this.
sorry.
Direct this chair to sign.
Signed by, motion by Dr. Kirstie Allison Ampe, second by Mr. Schlickman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes unanimously. We have an agreement with the traffic supervisors. That's great news. I'll sign this in a minute. Now we have a motion to adjourn this meeting. Motion by Ms. Starks to adjourn the meeting, second by Dr. Seuss. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.